Hey everybody, Leapalot here. How much can you accomplish in 2 full years on the farm? Well, I mean, did you read the title? Turns out, 2 years is just long enough to achieve your wildest dreams. Come along for the ride in this feature-length binge-a-thon and let's chase perfection as fast as we can. Day 1 was a pretty standard day. I planted my initial crops and did a little bit of cleaning up around the farm. Because I picked the Four Corners farm, I made sure to check my quarry for copper. I broke that to get a few early pieces. And I ran around to meet all the people I could, and I bought 1 green bean seed. I can get cauliflower and potatoes from mixed seeds, but I'll need this to complete the spring crops bundle. After I met everyone I could, I spent the night clearing up the farm, and I exhausted myself. That's no problem though, because I gained a foraging level, and we will wake up with full energy. Day 2, I immediately got the furnace recipe from Clint. We're gonna need furnaces, like a lot of them. I watered my crops, picked up a chest, and made sure to bring a fiber with me to go greet Willie. After he gave me the bamboo rod, I gave him the most precious gift a man can give, some grass I found on my farm yesterday. He didn't like it. Then I got to the busy work of fishing. I was lucky to get some bubbles just out of my reach, which meant if I could level up just one single time, I'd be able to cast into them. I ended up hitting fishing 2 before Willie closed, which was my biggest goal for the day. I sold everything I had and took my rod and chest to go fishing in the mountain lake. I ended up hitting fishing level 3, and I also passed out on a plank bridge between 2 islands. Fancy. On day 3, I woke up to find that Joja had collected my unconscious body from the mountain lake and deposited me into my bed. Now, normally Joja will charge you for this highly invasive service, but because I had literally 2 gold to my name, they did it for free. You can't take my money away if I have no money. That's going to be a theme for a while, by the way. If we pass out, we lose 10% of the money we had the day before, up to 1,000 gold. We'll also wake up with a huge energy loss. But if we have no money and we level up a skill the day before, we'll wake up no worse for wear. So we'll be trying to do that where possible to cut down on travel time. Oh, that was a lot of talking for day 3. I also went fishing all day. I wanted to reach fishing level 5 today so I could get some projects started as early as the 5th. That meant spending all day at the river with a short pit stop to Willie for more bait and to catch at least 1 eel for the community center. I managed to achieve my goal, which meant I could sell some fish tomorrow with the higher prices. Yay! Day 4 was, you may have guessed this, more fishing. I watered my crops, since we never get rain on day 4, and I sold a whole bunch of stinky fish. Lately, I've been parking myself on this plank here. I used to like going to the little island in the middle, but I found that I can see the whole area fine from here, and it's still deep enough water for me to catch high-quality fish. Today, though, I had some bubbles appear up north by the JoJo worker, which meant I needed to zoom in so he wasn't in my screen, or I would have to listen to him working on those rocks the whole time. It was very disrespectful of him to ruin my fishing experience. Those bubbles stuck around for a couple hours, helping me reach fishing level 7 today. And that's actually tied for the fastest I've ever done this, so I was pretty happy about that, to be honest. Day 5 is always a big day for a new farm. Marnie showed up with a dog that I named Pilfy, after my 2 dogs, Pickle and Alfie. I then harvested my parsnips and replaced them with some spring seeds I crafted. Then I planted some rice that I fished up, which is always kind of weird to me. After that, it was off to the museum to make donations and get some cauliflower. Before I could get there, though, Mayor Lewis tried to show me the community center. I told him to kick rocks and that his mustache is ugly, and then I went to go look at the weird book inside anyway. Something I should mention since I'm already in town here is that another goal of this farm is to find the trash hat. Every time I'm in town, I'll be checking garbage cans. There's something like a 1 in 500 chance to find that hat in the trash can, so I don't have super high hopes, but it is kind of my brand, so, you know, I have to look. I dropped off some stuff with Gunther, then ran home to do some last-minute errands. I planted my cauliflowers, checked the traveling cart, and considered spending 600 gold to buy a lobster before realizing that was a terrible idea. And then I hit the mines. My goal was to hit floor 20 and collect a whole bunch of copper. Every 5 floors I planned to pop back up and smelt more bars. I also needed to get home tonight because I kind of sold those fish a little early. Whoops. So I dove into my remixed mines looking for glory, and I found a bunch of copper, made some more furnaces, and smelted some bars. I didn't hit floor 20, and I didn't have enough copper bars for my plans, so I brought a couple of furnaces home with me, and I got some much-needed rest. On day 6, I had a letter from some dude who called himself a wizard. He wanted to talk to me about the community center, so I went to go visit. But when I got there, he tried to get me to sample his tea. I told him I'm not into MLMs, but he still taught me how to read the Apple language, so I could officially start making donations to the Junimos now. I did just that, and got 30 spring seeds for my efforts. Neat. Then, since I was feeling fancy, I bought myself a new backpack and some parsnip seeds. I also went to Clint's to crack all my geodes from fishing and mining and put my pickaxe in for an upgrade. I bought myself a little bit of gold from Clint so I wouldn't have any money also. because remember, if you're carrying gold in your pockets but your wallet is empty, no one can steal from you. Then I went home and planted a ton of spring seeds. I really want the foraging levels I can get from harvesting, but we'll also be making some tea saplings eventually just to sell. I don't want to go crazy with that since I need wood and fiber for lots of other projects, but it'll be a nice boost to our income when they do come into play. After that, I went fishing at the ocean for some bundle fish and cleaned up my farm just a tiny bit before sliding under the covers at 1:50 a.m., my favorite time to go to bed. Day 7 was another very, very exciting day. I checked the traveling cart and was disappointed. I checked the trash and was disappointed. And then I gave Lewis a flower for his birthday and I was disappointed in myself, honestly. I also noticed that tomorrow was going to be a rainy day. I was at Fishing 7, so if I could find some fish tacos for sale or in Gus's garbage, I might be able to hook the legend on day 8. Assuming I could hit Fishing 8 at some point. However, I was disappointed, again, by both the store and the trash. Bummer. So I just bought a whole bunch of bait and went fishing at my favorite spot. I did end up hitting Fishing 8, so I figure I'll just check the garbage and saloon again tomorrow. Who knows? Day 8 was a rainy, lucky day, and I kind of struggled deciding what to do. My copper pickaxe was ready, but I really wanted those sweet, sweet catfish. I had sold just enough yesterday to have $5,000 in my pocket, so I brought 5 iron bars with me and started my morning down at the river. It was hard to argue with the money I could make from these little catfish, so I figured I would just get my pickaxe upgraded again and keep fishing all day. I still wanted to check on Gus's rotating dish though, and he had 1 fish taco. Oh my gosh. I also checked his garbage can after. I should have checked that first, but there was nothing in there anyway. But still, 1 fish taco. I ran over to Clint to get my pick, but I did not put it in for an upgrade. I needed to do something else with the catfish cache now. I also turned in some quests, I guess, that I had been sitting on. Sometimes I like to keep these until I need the cash, and I really needed it now. Then I went to Willie and sold my morning's catch. I bought myself an iridium rod and a trapper bobber. It was go time. I sprinted up to the mountain lake, chowed down on my fish taco, and immediately got smoked by the legend. It's tough, alright? But my fishing buff lasted for several hours. I had time to try again. 3 hours later, I got another legend on the line. This was the one. He wasn't even too... Oh, okay, there he goes. That's alright, that's okay, we got this. 20 minutes later, I had him again. Come on, little dude, don't be a jerk. Also, I hate when legendary fish have treasure because it's just so tempting. Come on. But this time, I was victorious. The legend was mine. Time to drop him off in a chest and go get more catfish. I spent the rest of the night at the river and went to sleep feeling pretty darn proud of myself. Legend on day 8. What's up? Not bad. On day 9, I walked outside and found Demetrius waiting for me. The great equalizer. Bats or mushrooms. I picked bats, obviously. Come on, guys. Who is out here picking mushrooms? I'm a gambler, and I want the community center finished, dang it. It was a bad luck day, so I didn't want to go to the mines. Instead, I kind of just messed around. I gave Caroline a flower, checked the trash. Sorry, Willie. Put my pickaxe in for an upgrade to iron, dropped off some stuff at the museum, and then returned home to clean up a little bit. I knew I was going to need a lot of oak resin, so I started a little tree nursery in the top left quadrant of my farm, but, I gave Clint my pick, so it was a pretty pathetic little area. Then I spent the rest of the day fishing. I hit fishing level 9, which is awesome. I'm sitting on a bunch of fish I don't want to sell until I hit 10, so once we do, we'll have a nice little cash infusion. Day 10 was a rainy day, and if you can't guess exactly what I did for the vast majority of the day, then you probably haven't really been watching. I did, however, make a quick stop to give Vincent some bread that I found in his mom's trash can. How dare they waste this delicious loaf? He seemed to like it. I also checked the rest of the trash around the town, as you do, and found the one, the only, the trash hat. I actually considered just uploading, I played 10 Days of Stardew Valley, caught the legend, and found the trash hat, but that's a really long title. So instead, I bought some bait from Willie and went back to fishing for the rest of the day. The sweet call of oblivion found me on the shore of the river at 2 a.m., and I passed out in the mud right outside Leah's cabin. Day 11 was a rainy day, and if you can't guess exactly what Wait, no, that was yesterday. Today, I picked my green bean and loaded my inventory with gifts for the apples, and also for Gunther. My pickaxe was done today, and despite it being an unlucky day when I should have just fished all day, I was itching to get into the mines. I had already reached fishing 9 and caught most of what I needed for spring. Sure, I could fish for money and energy, and I probably should have, but what's life if you don't break your own rules sometimes? So, I dropped off a whole bunch of fish and crops at the community center before diving back into the mines once more. I often forget to kill 10 green slimes, so I made it a goal to take care of that quest today, and I also wanted a bunch of bug meat, so I hunted down those ugly little grubs too. It was a tough slog with my terrible luck, but there was one really important thing that happened on floor 19 at 5:40 p.m., day 11 of spring, year 1. I found an ancient seed from killing bugs. At this point, I realized I was probably going to have to turn over my save file to Concerned Apes fact checkers because this was getting a little bit silly. I ended up getting a magnet ring instead of a weapon on floor 20, which was fine, but I only made it to level 26 before it was time to go home for a little nap. I loaded up my inventory with stuff I wanted to take back home, and I broke some rocks on floor 1 for a tiny bit more resources before passing out. Again, as always. Day 12 was a good luck day, so I really wanted to get into the mines quickly. However, it was also a traveling cart day, and I also really wanted to get my ancient seed in the ground. So I cleared up some land on the farm, took care of my crops, and did my rounds. I found that the traveling cart had absolutely nothing of value, as is tradition. So I crushed some geodes, donated a bunch of stuff to the museum, and got my ancient seed packet. My best weapon at the moment was a crystal spire, and that was just truly awful. I made my way into the Adventurers Guild and bought a proper silver saber and dove back into the mines. I traversed the dreaded dark levels, which kind of aren't really that bad when you have a glow ring, and made my way into iron territory. This is fantastic news because we're going to need a lot of iron for our sprinkler layout. Now, you may have noticed that I don't have a ton of crops planted. In fact, a lot of what I do have planted is just forage. And you may be thinking to yourself, has he even hit farming level 2? The answer to that question is no, I haven't. But it's okay. We will eventually explode up in farming levels. We just have to trust the process. And also hope that we don't get a lot of crows eating our rice, because I kind of need those to grow. Anyway, since I had no money in my pockets and had gained a combat level today, I ended my evening by breaking rocks on floor 1 for more resources. Tasty, tasty stone. You'll love to see it. Day 13 was a wild seed harvest day. Very exciting. This also meant that I could start preparing my layout for the sprinklers today. I still couldn't make sprinklers, but I prepared my field, then watered spaces for strawberries. Oh yeah, there's something else happening today, isn't there? I'm only going to be able to afford 81 strawberries, which is a little less than I had planned for, but we should be able to make it work. I trounced Abigail with 13 eggs before sneaking back into town to go to the community center. I told Linus that digging in the trash is always ethical, then got my 20 speed grow for completing the spring crops bundle. I planted and fertilized my strawberries, pet Pilfy's brainless head, and then went to bed. Day 14 was a big one for one simple reason. I finally hit 2 hearts with Caroline, so I got to see her tea scene. Why is everyone in this town trying to talk me into their great tea opportunities? Come on, guys. Beyond that, though, it was a pretty boring day. I spent all day grinding for iron and copper in preparation for farming level 2 when I could build sprinklers. On day 15, I had a letter from Caroline in the mail teaching me how to make tea saplings. I also hit farming level 2 from my rice harvest, so I could get sprinkling tomorrow. Gosh, I'm sorry, that was really lame. I made a bunch of tea saplings, then I went to the mines where I killed a special slime and got a forest sword. Then I tried to pause OBS to talk to my wife and my recording crashed, so that's cool. But I can tell you that I made it to floor 65 that day and planted a single coffee bean that I found from a dust sprite. I also sold my tea saplings for a nice little profit. On day 16, I finally started to get some sprinklers down. I couldn't cover all my crops yet, but we were off to a good start. After that, I considered going to the mines, but because it was another rainy spring day and I was pretty close to hitting fishing level 10, I decided to hang out at the river all day. I did hit fishing 10, then tried to get over to snag Robin's axe, but passed out before I could. I selected the angler profession here as I wanted more money. Since I hit fishing 10 the day before, I sold a lot of stinky fish on day 17. Because nothing is sacred in this run, I even sold the legend for 11,250 gold. I felt a little bad about that because it would be cool to throw him in a fish tank, but I have other priorities on this farm, so off he went. After that, it was back to the mines. I needed more of pretty much everything for my sprinklers, but I also wanted to make some progress. I ended up getting a bone sword, so I sold off a bunch of junk to Marlin, and I made it to floor 85. Gold levels. Not bad. I continued to craft and place more sprinklers on day 18. I was finally getting to the point where I wouldn't need to water things anymore, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited. It was a bad luck day, but I still tried to make some progress in the mines. I even found a mushroom floor. Neat. Once I hit level 90, I grinded lower level floors for some ore, for more sprinklers, then I ran to the bar and gave Pam a parsnip for her birthday. Because I was feeling generous, I even got Shane a beer while I was there. To round off a fabulous day, I completed the boiler room and I used some of the cash I got from Mr. Legend to buy the 25,000 gold bundle in the vault. Overnight, the apple folk danced the minecarts back into working. Thanks. Day 19 was a Friday, so I checked the traveling cart and got absolutely nothing, surprise, surprise. There was a seafoam pudding, which was kind of tempting for the glacier fish eventually, but I passed on it. I did some geode cracking and museum donating, then I put my axe in for an upgrade and handed out some gifts before hitting the mines. I finally made it to floor 100 and got my first star drop. It reminded me of the grind, which I thought was cute and funny when I made the farm, but now, writing and recording, it just reminds me that I'm grinding myself down to nothing. Neat. I only made it to floor 105 before needing to head home, where I cleared out my quarry and went to bed. I leveled up foraging, mining, and combat today, and picked the scout perk for combat, which is something I don't always do. How fun. Day 20 was a harvest day for those speed grow strawberries. Always a good feeling. I kept the gold ones for gifts and sold the others. Then it was back to the mines. I was making gold bars all day, and I found some cool but useless purple shoes and a very, very nice weapon in the slammer. I really love that thing. With one of my favorite weapons in hand, I made it to the bottom of the mines today, and I got the skull key. You won't catch me playing arcade games, but I'll need that in the desert soon. It was also Shane's birthday, so I grabbed him a beer before checking my bat cave for a whole bunch of goodies and getting some much-deserved rest. I was very happy with my progress at this point. Day 21 was another strawberry day, this time the larger bunch. I also filled out the rest of my field today. I officially did not need to water anything anymore. What a great feeling. To celebrate, I decided to go shopping at the traveling cart. It was all garbage again though, except she had that same sea foam pudding. You can't trick me. I realized at this point that I didn't have 5 gold parsnips, and I quickly donned my clown costume and bought a bunch from Pierre. I also picked up my copper axe and handed over my pickaxe for the gold upgrade. Nice. Even though it was a good luck rainy day, I spent most of my time clearing up the farm a little bit before heading to the community center to complete the vault bundle. Soon, we would have access to the skull cavern, and then the real fun would begin. Overnight, the apple folk once again did a happy dance that fixed the inner workings of machinery? Modern science truly is amazing. Also, I realized that I hadn't perfectly completed my sprinkler layout after all, so I fixed that right away. After that, it was up to Robbins to build a coop. I also gave Demetrius a gold strawberry, handed over to Jade to fulfill a Maru request, and gave her a strawberry too. I spent most of the rest of my day grinding for dust sprite kills to work toward the burglar ring. This is a really boring and repetitive part of the run, but pretty important for future goals. I also love getting coffee beans from these guys. I got another one and planted it at home before cleaning up a bit more around my farm. On day 23, my gold pickaxe was ready and I wanted to upgrade my axe to iron, but I only had 1 iron bar at home. I checked the mines chest, but I didn't have any there either. When Clint finally opened, I grabbed my pick and ran for the mines to try and find enough iron before he closed. Fortunately, despite it being a bad luck day, I found this level at 9:30 and this one at 10:20. So yeah, no problem. I put my axe in for an upgrade so Clint could work on it after Emily turned him down at the dance tomorrow. Then I spent the rest of the day grinding for more copper for furnaces and iron for bars. Day 24 was the flower dance, so I couldn't stray too far from my farm. I spent the morning cleaning up a little bit before joining in on the festivities 20 minutes before closing time, like the jerk I am. I bought the tub of flowers recipe and the rare crow from Pierre before checking out everyone's neat seasonal outfits. Fortunately, I had been keeping Shane liquored up enough this spring that I had someone to dance with, but it was really awkward to go through the dance section without the music. Kinda like some kind of creepy ritual. I still had plenty of time after the dance, so I spent my night grinding for resources in the mines, and I leveled up to 6 in combat. Day 25 brought the return of strawberry harvest, and my parsnips were ready to go too. Bad news though, I only got 3 gold ones. That wasn't the end of the world, but it meant that we would need gold melons, pumpkins, and corn. I was planning to plant all of those, so it would be fine, but I still felt kinda dumb. To shake off my embarrassment, I spent the rest of the day systematically hunting down every dust sprite I could find. I checked my progress with the Adventurers Guild, and was highly disappointed to learn that I was only about halfway there. Ugh. On day 26, my coop was done. Hooray! I planted a whole bunch of tree seeds today, quite a bit later than I should have, to be honest. Then I ran to check the traveling cart. She had nothing for me, as is tradition, so I went to Marnie's for some animals. When I got there though, Shane was, I guess, not doing so great, but it's not really my problem, so I just dumped some water on his head and got back to shopping. I bought 4 chickens and named them Jackin, Checkin, Chicken, and Chalkin. I was not feeling creative. I also made my first trip to the Skull Cavern today. I should have been working on the burglar ring, but honestly, I was bored of that. I met Sandy and dove into the Skull Cavern. It was a rare, completely neutral luck day, but I still managed to find a rabbit's foot from a serpent. I got really excited to find a treasure room too, but it just had a white turban. Still pretty cool. I made sure to trade for a desert totem so I could get here more quickly next time, then I used my farm totem to get home. I forgot how far away the statue is on the Four Corners farm though, so I ended up passing out mere inches from my bed. I had reached Foraging 5 though, so I picked Gatherer, of course, and I would wake up with full stamina the next day. In the morning, Emily told me I could use her sewing machine now, so I grabbed some trash from my fishing box and made a trip into town. I made my way to Emily and Haley's house, where I convinced Haley to actually do one chore. Life's tough when you're a blonde, I would know. I turned my trash into a shirt, and my fit was complete. It wasn't even summer, and I was already my trashy self. Excellent. After that, it was back to the Skull Cavern. Nothing fun to report today, but I got a lot of good resources. I ended up trading for more desert totems and spicy eel before heading back to the valley to pace awkwardly outside the saloon. It was Emily's birthday, and I had an aquamarine for her. Technically, since it was 12:50 when she came out, I was a day late, I guess, but she didn't mind. Spring 28, the final day of the season. I had been gathering resources for quality sprinklers, and my strawberries had propelled me to farming level 6. Today I finally crafted and placed them down in preparation for summer. I also visited the traveling cart and got nothing, as always, then planted more trees off the farm today. I need more wood. I spent the rest of the day gathering gold and mining experience. I wanted to make more bars, and eventually level 10 mining would turn into a great source of income. I ended up hitting mining 9 overnight, and I closed the door on spring for the year. It's time for a new season. Day 29 was the first day of summer, and I had a lot to do. I tilled out space for a much larger crop this time. I needed gold melons, gold corn, and lots of crops just in general. It was time to put those quality sprinklers to use. I spent literally all day getting my field ready, and finally finished tilling, watering, and fertilizing everything at 1:30 a.m. Just barely made it, but we made it. Since I finished everything I needed to on the farm yesterday, I made a trip to the Skull Cavern on day 30. It was a good luck day, and I was looking forward to hunting for some iridium. This seems like a good time to talk about that, actually. While bigger fields and artisan goods are more of a passive income in that you plant and then process them, I'm also working on some more active income tasks as well. When we hit mining 10, we'll take the blacksmith profession to increase the sale value of our iridium bars. Obviously, we need iridium to craft with, but we also need money, so it'll be a bit of a balancing act to sell enough bars to progress while saving enough to craft, construct, and upgrade with. For that reason, I'll be in the Skull Cavern a lot. Today, though, I found a couple of things much cooler than iridium. I found an auto grabber, which will save me about 25,000 gold later, and I found a dinosaur floor. I didn't get any dino eggs today, but Pepper X are one of the most annoying Protector of the Valley goals to me, so finding these early is really nice. On the iridium front, it actually wasn't a very productive day with only about 60 ores, but those were a couple high points of the day. On day 31, I stopped by Robin's to buy the stone path recipe and get a silo started. I wanted to decorate at some point, and I had way more stone than wood. Plus, I need a silo, so. After that, I completed my summer forage bundle, handed out some gifts around town, and crafted a couple mayo makers for my farm. It was a bit of a slower paced day compared to the last two, and that was just fine with me. Day 32 wasn't a very good luck day, so I spent it doing some chores that had been kind of piling up. I spent some time killing dust sprites, since that's kind of a long-term goal. I also made sure to smelt some more bars while I was up there, since I'm going to need huge amounts of iron, gold, and quartz before fall. Then I donated some items to the museum, checked the beach for a cockle, did not find a cockle, and dropped off some gifts. It was Jazz's birthday and I didn't have a gift, so I walked roughly 50 feet from where she was standing to grab her a flower. She thought that was great. After that, it was back to the dust sprite grind. I was absolutely in tears to find out that I had only reached about 300 sprite kills, but that is what happens when you don't actually do this. Time to absolutely destroy them before I burn out and give up. When it got a little later, I headed back to the farm to clear out part of my bottom left field. We'll be using that soon. And then I started some basic pathing around the front of my house. Cute! On day 33, I began placing sprinklers in the lower left field. It was almost time. Then I checked the traveling cart, and would you believe it if I told you she had absolutely nothing of value. It was also a rainy day, so I went to get the red snapper for the community center. I got a couple of the snappers fairly early in the day in a bubble spot, but I was still getting some really cheap fish, so instead of sticking around for the money, I went to go get a sturgeon. I snagged one of those with no problem, so I ran around talking to friends and giving gifts before turning in a whole bunch of donations to the community center. Also, I expanded the sprinklers a little bit. It's starting to look a little intimidating down there. I finally found a snail in my crab pot this morning. Oh my gosh, I could have bought that lobster all those weeks ago. On day 34, I spent my morning getting absolutely thrashed by the stupid octopus. I was at the beach for tilapia, which I missed yesterday, and a pufferfish, but I just got absolutely wrecked by this stupid thing. It's so annoying. I did catch my pufferfish and tilapia, but I never managed the octopus. I'll have to come back for it another day. How embarrassing. I talked to people again and handed out some gifts before completing the crab pot bundle, finally, in summer. I made a quick trip to the oasis to snag a sandfish, some forage, and some wood, then came back to the valley to have a beer with Shane and catch the wood skip. That's another bundle complete. On day 35, I killed dust sprites. That's kind of it. I guess I smelted some more bars and put my hoe in for an upgrade. Oh, and I bankrupted myself buying explosive ammo for reasons. Day 36 was a rainy, bad luck day, and it also happened to be Gus's birthday. I didn't have any oranges, so I planned to give him a diamond. But first, time to grind for dust sprite kills, and ooh, baby, was it worth it. I found a prismatic shard. That meant taking a quick trip to the desert to get myself a galaxy sword. I did some more wholesale slaughter, taking a short break to give Gus his birthday diamond, and I found 3 more coffee beans. You might not know this about me, but I love coffee. I would take a speed buff over just about anything else in the game, and my fields, they are a-growin'. I will end up having a lot of coffee by the end of this summer, mark my word. Speaking of coffee, day 38 was a harvest for a few different crops, including coffee, and I replaced those crops with coffee. That was kind of my plan for summer. My other plan for summer was diving a Skull Cavern on lucky days, and wouldn't you know it, today was lucky. Ironically, this lucky day was actually not as great as my neutral luck day. However, I did find a prismatic shard, which I could either donate or save up for some magic rock candy. Other than that, though, it was a pretty remarkably unremarkable day. I was a little bummed, to be honest. The best part of the day actually came overnight when I hit level 10 mining and selected the blacksmith profession. Now I could begin selling bars to supplement my crop income. Neat. On day 38, I expanded my secondary field and finally planted some crops down there, just some summer seeds for now. I want the foraging experience and the grapes for Vincent. I've been making tea saplings here and there for cash, but it's not a major source of income for me since I need to save some fiber and wood. It was Maru's birthday today, so I dropped off a gold strawberry for her and for Demetrius, and I got that weird scene where he tries to bully me. I ignored him though and decided that maybe I would marry Maru this run. I don't do that very often, and I hadn't decided who I would marry yet. After that, I dropped off a bunch of stuff at the museum, including my prismatic shard, and handed out gifts around town. Then it was back to Sprite City. All my work on days 32, 35, and 36 finally paid off. I managed to secure the burglar ring by about 5 p.m., and headed back into the mines to work on the Shadow Brute goal and reached level 9 combat by the end of the day. Not bad. Day 39 was another day of field expansion. I'm just going to call this Field 2, even though it's like my 4th separate growing area, whatever. I put down a lot of summer seeds and got a scarecrow in place to protect more coffee beans down there. It was going to be wild. I did chores all morning, planting crops, taking care of my chickens, smelting more bars, and then I used a beach totem to teleport into the luau like it was no big deal. And apparently it wasn't, since no one even noticed. I threw a gold cauliflower into the pot, which the governor loved, then spent the rest of the night grinding for gold and shadow person kills. I kinda wanted to be done with this goal before meeting Krobus, because otherwise it feels a little awkward. On day 40, I finished getting scarecrows in place in Field 2 and planted a whole bunch more summer seeds. My chickens had finally given me large eggs, which was neat, but it also reminded me that I needed to get moving on my barn. I checked the traveling merchant and was unsurprised to see nothing of value, so I ran over to Robin's and got that barn started. I also told Maru a story about farming, gave Linus a coconut, and spent the rest of the day grinding for ore in the mines. Before going to bed, I put tappers on a few more oak trees. It was a pretty relaxing day. Day 41 was a melon harvest day, and I got way more gold melons than I needed. I also snagged an orange from the Bat Cave, which was nice for the bundle, but I kinda wish I could've given it to Gus. I dropped off some items at the community center and gave Alex a rabbit's foot for his birthday. I hate Alex's birthday. Then I dropped off some donations at the museum and sold my day's harvest. I wanted starfruit next, so I hopped on the bus to the desert. You see, Field 2 was going to be my big money maker. I couldn't fill it today, but I made a good start. I spent the rest of the day giving gifts and grinding in the mines for more resources. I also found a mushroom floor. Neat. Overnight, I hit farming level 8, which meant I could craft kegs. Double neat. Day 42 was a blueberry day. I love that noise. I really do. It was also a traveling cart day, and I bought a rare seed since I knew I wanted at least 2 of those anyway. Thanks, I guess. It was also a lucky day, and a Sunday. I grabbed my jade, ran to the desert, and traded them all for staircases. It was an okay dive. I found some artichoke seeds. Cool. But I threw them away, because I didn't have the space. I found a prismatic shard though, which I definitely did not throw away. I was really hoping to get 3 of these to trade for some magic rock candy. I ended up finding 2, which was close, but not quite enough. Between the good luck, my staircases, and plenty of bombs and explosive ammo, I made it to floor 66 and scooped up about 120 iridium ore. Turned into bars, that would be worth 36,000 gold, so not bad for a day's work. Day 43 was an important day. I needed to raise a lot of money today, like, kind of a lot. I needed 90,000 gold to buy the rest of the starfruit I wanted, but I woke up with only about 23,000. Fortunately, I am a bit of a hoarder. I had enough supplies to make 20 tea saplings, and I sold 10 cloth I'd gathered from mummies, as well as a bunch of random crops. That brought me up over 40,000. Next up, I cracked geodes, donated the new stuff, and sold the duplicate gems and artifacts, as well as those 24 iridium bars I was talking about earlier. That brought me over 83,500. Finally, I sold 132 void essence, which brought me over 90,000. I used a desert totem because I could not afford the 500 gold to take the bus, and I bought 225 starfruit from Sandy. I spent the rest of the night tilling, planting, and watering them, but I passed out before I could water 88 of them. That was a bit of a problem, since today was the last day to plant them. Teehee. Day 44 started with a visit from Gunther. I had finally donated 60 items and he gave me the rusty key to the sewer. But first, I needed to get some fertilizer for my starfruit. I could still make this work if I used speed grow on the crops that didn't get watered yesterday. The problem was I didn't have any money. But I did have more iridium bars smelting overnight. So I made a couple visits around town, told Abigail that I don't play video games, and bought enough speed grow to cover my needs. I realized I was also going to need a lot of batteries, so I crafted a bunch of lightning rods today too. I also had a quest from Maru to give her a Joja Cola, so I ran to the saloon to get one, but then I realized it was just too late in the day, so I drank it. What an idiot. I finished up my day by expanding my little path and cutting down trees and cinder sap until I passed out. I hit level 7 foraging, and I didn't really have any money to lose. Win-win. I kind of forgot about Krobus though. On day 45, I cleared some space to move my barn since it was in a really annoying spot down there, and then I visited Clint. I sold him a bunch of iridium to raise money for a barn upgrade and for some cows, which were next on my list. I named them Ka, Q, Ke, and Cow. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Again, not feeling super creative. After that, it was off to the Skull Cavern. I traded in some diamonds for triple shots, some rubies for spicy eel, and plunged into the depths. I made a very embarrassing mistake on floor 26 and ran straight to the stairs, even though there was a drop shaft available, but it turned out to be not a huge deal because on floor 39, I got a prismatic shard from a serpent. Nice. Now that I had 3, I could trade them for a magic rock candy and get that huge luck buff for another dive later. I was so excited that I ran to do that, but you can't. You can only do it on Thursdays. Day 46 was, in fact, a Thursday. So, after harvesting some crops and taking care of my animals, I headed to the desert to snag a magic rock candy and give Sandy a flower. After that, the whole day was ahead of me, so I just kind of wandered around. I started my gold axe upgrade and I put some pathing around my tree farm, and I really regret using the gravel flooring. I hate the way it sounds, and I was going to have to listen to that for the rest of this playthrough. That's a big L. On day 47, I harvested a large batch of summer forage and turned them back into a ludicrous 175 summer seeds. Then I wandered around town handing out random gifts to villagers. I learned that the people really do love corn. I bought a couple goats and named them Gat and Geet. I also checked the traveling merchant and was surprised to find a truffle. I strongly considered buying it. I could basically skip the final barn upgrade if I needed to, but I didn't do it. I like piggies. I wasn't sure if that would come back to bite me. On day 48, I picked up my axe from Clint and gave him my hoe to upgrade to iron. I also started a barn upgrade since I need those piggies soon, and then I headed to the Skull Cavern. It was a good luck day and I was going to eat my candy. Magic rock candy is truly something else. I hit a treasure room on floor 18, Omni Geodes, floor 20, Prismatic Shard, floor 33, White Turban, found another Prismatic Shard on floor 56, and I made it to floor 85 before passing out. I got nearly 150 iridium ore from this trip, so I would consider it a good day. I was hoping to get 3 more Prismatic Shards so I could just get another Magic Rock Candy, but I only found 2. Bummer. Day 49 was a Sunday, which meant traveling cart, disappointment, but also a good luck day, so I took my jade to the desert for staircases and made another push into the mines. Even without the Magic Rock Candy I wanted, I did manage to find 1 Prismatic Shard from an iridium node on floor 50, which meant I could get my candy again. Yay! I also got a Dino Egg from a Pepper Rex on floor 67, which was a momentous occasion to be sure. I ended up getting to floor 74 and snagging 145 iridium ore, so it was another very successful run in my book. On day 50, I didn't record day 50, but thanks to my extensive notes, I can tell you that I picked up my steel hoe, started a coop upgrade, made a bunch of tappers, handed out gifts, and cut down trees. I specifically remember, right before I went to bed at 1:50, I made sure to look at the camera and give a little heart emote, so just pretend that happened, I guess. We're halfway through now, but there's no time to slow down. I still have a ton of goals left to accomplish, so let's push forward. Today, I sold a bunch of produce to upgrade my bag. I was feeling cramped with only 24 slots, so this will really help in future Skull Cavern dives. I also put in my pickaxe for its final upgrade to iridium. What a great feeling. Other than that, I spent most of the day handing out gifts, cutting down trees, and I planted a whole bunch of tree seeds up by the spa. We're gonna need a ton of wood for the next phase of the game. I made my first 9 kegs today and got some coffee started. There's gonna be a lot more where that came from. On day 52, I still didn't have my pickaxe, obviously, so I had to find something else to do. My coop was upgraded, but I promptly forgot all about that for about another week. You might recall that I got absolutely jebaited by the octopus like 14 times in a row earlier this month. Well, today it was time for revenge. I grabbed some fishing food, a bunch of fishing gear, and headed down to the beach with a handy-dandy warp totem to try to catch my nemesis. It was surprisingly quite easy. I caught the second one I hooked. After that, I headed to the river to catch a couple other fish I was missing for summer, ran back down to the ocean to give Willy the octopus I caught earlier for his birthday, and hurried to the river to catch the Dorado. The only other 2 summer fish I needed were the super cucumber and the crimson fish, so I got some wood together, fixed the bridge, and caught my second legendary fish of the run. Once again, because nothing is sacred, I sold him. Teehee. Overnight, I hit farming 10 and picked up Artisan. Here we go. Day 53 was a good luck day and my iridium pick was going to be ready. I also had started my coffee stockpile, and it was a Thursday. That meant I could trade for Magic Rock candy. It was shaping up to be a fine day. I had some quick chores first, including selling some iridium bars, switching my pick for my axe at Clint's, and buying a sheep and a pig. I named the pig Peg, to follow in tradition, and I named the sheep Danny, after my wife, because she loves the sheep. Then it was off to the desert. I traded for some Magic Rock candy and some other goodies, then got started. Today was not as exciting as I had hoped. I found a treasure floor on 55 with life elixirs, and I got one prismatic shard from an iridium node. I did get over 160 iridium before passing out on floor 91, but it was an otherwise kind of unremarkable day. One neat thing though was that I hit combat level 10 and I picked up Acrobat overnight. On day 54, the first of my starfruit ripened. I harvested it and replaced the spots with coffee beans. They wouldn't grow in time, but they would keep the ground tilled in water when the season changed, and honestly that was just as valuable. I won't be making any starfruit wine just yet. I need to work through more of my coffee stores first, but that will eventually be a huge source of income for us. I also gathered up enough wood to upgrade my house, but forgot that I had no money. So I handed out some gifts and sold a bunch of stuff to Pierre before heading back up north to start the upgrade. I checked the traveling merchant and I bought nothing. Then I spent the rest of the day handing out gifts, smelting iridium bars, and killing dust sprites for coal. It felt nostalgic somehow. Day 55 was a very lucky day, and I didn't have much I needed to accomplish, so I made an early trip to the Skull Cavern. I found my third white turban on floor 16 today. Could we just stop with this? I got really excited on floor 70 when I saw a machine coming out of the chest, but it was just a seed maker. Better than another turban, I guess. Other than that though, it was a pretty standard day. Despite actually having some money in my pocket, I decided to stay as late as possible. If I could get even 5 more iridium ore by staying, it would be worth more than getting to bed on time. So I very strategically passed out while a bomb was going off on floor 97, heading home with over 120 iridium in my backpack. Day 56 was the last day of summer. I started my day by smelting more bars in the mines before running out of coal. That is super sad. I also had my final summer harvest back on the farm, and it was a doozy. Over 200 starfruit were ready. Some of them were ready yesterday, but I was busy. And I had thousands of coffee beans to fill all the empty spaces on my farm. We would go into fall with our field ready for planting. Even after all that, my coffee bean stores were near 3,000, so I had plenty of work for my kegs to do before we even started with the starfruit. I hadn't checked the bat cave in a bit, and I leveled up to 9 from all the fruit in there. We were getting close to hitting level 10 in every skill by the end of summer, so I was well on track to finish that up by the end of the run. I also got the rarest dialogue in all of Stardew Valley today at Marnie's, where she thought I was Lewis. It was extra spicy because Shane was standing 5 feet away. I saw the blue chicken cutscene too, but who cares compared to that dialogue. I checked the traveling cart and got no red cabbage again, so I was starting to actually get a little worried. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up and doing chores before heading to the beach for the Moonlight Jellies. Despite this festival not really offering much in terms of shopping or hearts, I still find it very peaceful and pretty enjoyable. That night, I said goodbye to summer and welcomed in the best season in Stardew Valley. On fall 1st, day 57, my house was big. Neat. More importantly, it was planting day. I had been saving up a lot of iridium for sprinklers, and today I was planning to redo my primary field layout to be a little more attractive. I did want to decorate at least a little in this run. Fortunately for me, I used spreadsheets to figure out my planting, so I was able to sell some iridium bars to Clint, and I had exactly 27 gold left by the time I bought all my seeds. The rest of my day was just clearing out the fields, tilling and watering tiles that were changing from the summer layout, and putting down our crop. The second field, the big one, that had 500 pumpkins this season, and I was already Scrooge McDuck in my dreams that night, diving into my cash. On day 58, I was press ganged by Lewis into doing more chores for the village and chose to hunt down bug guts instead of growing 100 bok choy. If I hadn't just planted my entire field yesterday, I mean, come on. I scared Maru at work when I tried to ask her to be my GF. Because I was mad with Lewis, I took Sam's side in an argument that day, then I bought the triple shot espresso recipe. That'll be pretty useful in a bit. I spent the rest of my day killing bugs for their guts and found another ancient seed. Can't plant it now, but when we get the greenhouse, it'll be nice to have. Day 59 was a rainy day, which meant I should probably do some fishing. But first, I bought a couple of ducks. This was way later than I was planning, but I had simply walked in and out of my coop every day for a week without realizing I never bought them. So I got 2 of them, Dak and Deck. I didn't want to buy a third because, I didn't want to name a duck Dick. This was a terrible plan. I also grabbed Lewis's shorts while I was at Marnie's. Spicy. After that, I visited Maru, where I was electrocuted. I went fishing for walleye and the angler and turned in some community center items. I had enough bugs for Willie's gross request, so I dropped those off and passed out at the beach. Overnight, a witch cursed my coop. Spoopy. On day 60, I caught a tiger trout and a salmon early in the day, and I cooked the recipes I needed for Gus's bulletin board request. I had enough apples for Marnie too, so I dropped off a bunch of stuff and completed the fishing bundle entirely. Hooray! I also cracked geodes and made donations, and finally took all of my museum rewards home, where I made a little display room of my own. I threw more tappers on trees and made some fences to decorate the layout around my primary field. I gotta say, it doesn't look too bad. That night, the apples told the Shining Rock that it was time to leave town, and soon the rivers would be full of ore. On day 61, the traveling cart had nothing for me, but that's okay because I didn't want to complete the community center anyway. I'm honestly not sure what I did today, other than hand out gifts, buy a bunch of explosive ammo, and work on Monster Slayer goals. Even watching my footage back, it kind of looks like I'm just wandering around, so go me. Day 62, though, that was a good one. It was a good luck day, and I didn't have many chores, so I made a quick run for the Skull Cavern. Exciting things from today include, but are not limited to, a purple slime egg in a treasure floor. Very cool, but still not an auto-petter. A dino floor on floor 69. Very nice. And 2 prismatic shards. I don't remember why I tried so hard to sell stuff, but I passed out mere inches from my shipping bin with only $30 to my name. On day 63, I got a letter from Demetrius with a bream in it, and for some reason my game just kept crashing over and over and over until the letter had a nautilus shell in it, and it was so strange. Unfortunately, all that resetting did not help with the traveling cart, but when I got back to my farm, Leah gave me a weird sculpture. I have a special plan for that statue, by the way. After turning in a bunch of donations today, I worked on the club card quest since my beets were ready to harvest. We love fetch quests in this house. I re-gifted my statue from Leah to Pam while I was out. This will force Pam to move more quickly through the town toward the bus stop, and it will let Leah know that I'm already spoken for this time. Day 64 was a cranberry day. While that's not exceptionally important for us on this file, the sound of harvesting them is just oh so satisfying. I've also been making seeds for my strawberries for a while, but started making more fall seeds instead. I want that foraging level, dang it. I also hit friendship level 10 with Maru just by talking with her today, so I left the building and came back in to watch her super weird 10-heart scene. This one is, it's out there. Next time we get a rainy day, I'll be able to buy a mermaid pendant now. Woohoo! I finally caved and bought a bunch of coal from Clint today, and I also started a coop upgrade. I really needed a shed more than a coop at this point, but I do like the auto feeder upgrade. Before bed, I accepted the prismatic jelly quest from the wizard. That guy is into some weird stuff. Day 65 was another good luck day. I got all my chores done and packed for a trip. Before my dive, though, I gave Sandy a flower and stopped in to meet Mr. Key. I was unimpressed. Despite it being a good luck day, I felt like the whole day was kind of lame. I got 15 cherry bombs from a treasure floor and a prismatic shard on 67, but I don't know, it felt underwhelming. I guess maybe my expectations are too high at this point. I tried to do another cool move with a bomb at 150, but it didn't work, so I passed out with about 100 iridium in my bag, which was a bit of a disappointment at this point. Day 66 was a peaceful day. I did some foraging and noticed that Leah was not taking the hint very well. I also saw that I'd be getting rain tomorrow, so I could buy the mermaid pendant and propose. Nice. I had finally worked through my coffee bean supplies at this point, so I started switching over to starfruit wine. I still needed lots of oak resin, but I was getting more and more all the time back on the farm. I like to find an infested floor, if possible, for the prismatic jelly quest, so I checked the first few floors around some of the deeper elevators just in case. I started with 81 and 82, but didn't have any luck. Then I went from 91 to 94, nothing there either. Then I went to 101 and checked there, and at 102, I found a slime floor. I spent most of the day digging from 101 to 102 and killing slimes or taking screenshots, but I never found the jelly. Day 67 was a rainy day, so I could get the pendant, but it was also a Thursday, and I had 3 prismatic shards, so I went to get a magic rock candy first. After that, though, I bought a rabbit from Marnie and named it Tony. I was finally feeling creative. I snagged the pendant from Maru and skipped through cutscene after cutscene from other marriage candidates before finally proposing to her. We were going to get married in 3 days. I cannot imagine the stress of that wedding planning. Fortunately, I don't have to, so I'm going back to the mines. I wasn't lucky enough to find another infested floor today, so I just kind of wandered around different areas of mine. I found another ancient seed, but no prismatic jelly. I was concerned. On day 68, I finally got the red cabbage seeds from the traveling cart. Oh, thank you, traveling cart lady and pig. I'll never talk smack about you again until my next run. I spent the rest of my day, unsuccessfully, trying to find that stupid prismatic jelly. Pathetic. I wish I could say that day 69 was a nice day, but it really wasn't. Sure, I made a ton of money today, selling a bunch of my crops at Pierre, but I still hadn't found the prismatic jelly by the end of the day, and I crawled into bed at 1:50 a.m. a failure. Yikes. On day 70, I got married, which is pretty cool, but it was also a pumpkin harvest day, which is kind of cooler. 500 delicious pumpkins ready to go. The reason I had sold so much of my stuff yesterday was because I had a very large purchase to make today, or rather a couple. I checked the traveling cart, more out of habit than anything, then turned in my gold and normal pumpkins to complete the pantry and finished the Enchanter's bundle too. For those of you keeping track at home, that means I need to finish Winter Forage and the dye bundle, and that is it. Not bad. After that, I bought another 500 pumpkins to replace the ones I just harvested, and I bought the supplies I needed to make 100 preserve jars. Listen, I know I could simply cut down trees and break rocks and whatever, but this is an investment, okay? Those pumpkins are going to be pickled, and the tunnel is going to be a terrifying wiggly nightmare. Oh, I also hit the 1 million gold mark while selling iridium bars to Clint today. I spent the rest of my day trying and failing to get the prismatic jelly. It was over. I failed. Even the Junimos wiggling my greenhouse back to normal couldn't help my mood. Yeah, actually, it could. On day 71, my greenhouse was ready. Maru also reminded me that tomorrow was a Stardew Valley fair. I planted all the winter seeds I had made from winter roots in my greenhouse in hopes of completing the winter forage bundle early, and I threw my 13 ancient seeds and my red cabbage in there for good measure. I filled in a bunch of spots with strawberries for Maru, and I visited Sandy for her birthday. She wanted a Joja Cola for some reason, and I gave her that and a flower. Happy birthday, Sandy. I also picked up Robin's project as a special order this week. 80 hardwood was manageable, but I still needed hardwood for my house and for the boat, so we'll see if I turn this one in. Day 72 was the Stardew Valley Fair, and it was a cursed day. I mean, I blew Pierre out of the water with my display, easy, but I bet on green and lost so many times that I had to play the slingshot game like 5, 6, 7 times? I actually don't know. And listen, y'all, I'm not good at the slingshot game. It was a frustrating day, but I got my tasty star drop, and I got my rare crow. For some reason, that starfruit makes me feel like I'm forgetting something. Day 73 was a wine and pickles day. This doesn't happen often, but when it does, we make a lot of money. I spent my day restocking and building more kegs and chopping down and replanting trees. I also started my watering can upgrade. It was a good day, money-wise. The pumpkin pickles are selling for just under 100,000 every 4 days at this point, and the wine will vary depending on how many kegs I have at any given time. It took us 3 months to hit our first 1 million gold, and I just earned a fifth of that today. Not bad at all. On day 74, I had another cranberry harvest. Neat. Some of these will eventually become jelly when the pumpkins run out. I focused on gifting and foraging today. I need hardwood for Robin and for other projects, but I also just want to hit foraging 10. I started a shed today, and also bought the Galaxy Hammer with my pickle and wine money. By the way, I haven't been showing every trip to the Adventurers Guild, but here's a good place to check in. I still need to finish slimes, void spirits, bats, skeletons, 24 Pepper X, not bad, and only 16 serpents. That is pretty good. Day 75 was a day of more foraging for hardwood, more Protector of the Valley questing, and more pickles. There's not much to say here, other than that things were in full swing. It was a very good day at the 3/4 mark. Making 100,000 every few days on those pickles was feeling very nice, and I had 500 more pumpkins growing in the field still. I was happy. Especially when I hit foraging level 10 overnight and picked Botanist. I love Iridium Forage. Honestly, the best part is the inventory management. I have a confession to make about day 76, and it's actually a confession about a different day. I have no idea when I bought the star drop from Krobus, but I realized while watching this one back that when I went to visit him, the star drop wasn't in his inventory, so at some point I did that, I guess. Today though, I watched my father-in-law get in the stupidest argument I have ever seen. Then upgraded my shed and went to the desert to try to kill some serpents for the Protector of the Valley goal. But I found a Pepper Rex floor, and on floor 14 I inched ever closer to that goal instead. But somehow I didn't manage to find 14 serpents. Embarrassing, really. On day 77 I got my snow yam and crocus from the greenhouse. That meant that the only things, and I mean the only things left, were a duck feather and a red cabbage. I had some red cabbage growing and I had 2 ducks in the coop, so I was feeling good about completing the community center before winter. Which was a goal I had set at the beginning, right? Unfortunately, you might remember I bought those ducks kind of late. So it was kind of getting pretty close to winter already. I decided to switch my profession to coop master temporarily to try to speed things up. Then I went to go try again with the whole serpent thing. I did manage it this time by about 6:30, so I headed back to the valley to get my napalm ring. Just slimes, bats, and Pepper Rex left until I get to Ginger Island at least. Overnight, the Junimos wiggled and jiggled so hard that the quarry bridge poofed back into existence, which meant I could start moving my kegs soon. Neat. Day 78 was a good luck day, so I made a trip to the Skull Cavern, as you do. Today, I had a goal: get an auto petter. I had so much explosive ammo, so many bombs, a magic rock candy, all the time in the world. I hit my first treasure floor at 11:20 a.m., and I was gifted 4 quality sprinklers? I ate my magic rock candy at about this point.
The buff doesn't last forever, and I wanted it in effect for the deeper levels rather than the first few floors. I hadn't tried this before, but I figured it was worth a shot. I don't know if it was. But I was quickly rewarded with another useless treasure floor with 5 Omni-Geodes. Who is packing these stupid chests? More importantly, I found a dino level on floor 51. I think I was at 37 dinos before this run, and there were 10 in this room alone. We are very close. My next treasure floor was on 64, and this one was another auto grabber. That's actually acceptable. I'll take that over some quartz any day. My final treasure floor and last chance at an auto petter was on floor 100. We did it! Sure, I didn't get the iridium milk because I don't have the quest yet, but this was one of my goals, so I was happy, regardless of Mr. Key's feelings on the matter. The chest was a slime egg, by the way. No auto petters for me. The 216 iridium ore I brought home helped heal the wound in my heart, though. On day 79, I started moving stuff into my upgraded shed. That's kind of it. That's my day. I moved all my chests, furnaces, artisan machines, and everything into the shed. And I arranged things in color-coded boxes. It was one of my favorite days of the entire run. Oh, also, more pickles and wine were ready today, but I passed out trying to fill my preserves jars. Day 80 was another relaxing day. I finished putting more stuff in jars and put down some torches so I could see better in the tunnel. I checked to see that I was within 10% of my slime killing goal and only had like 9 more bats to kill. Then I started clearing out the quarry. That would eventually be the home of my kegs. Because I had switched my profession to Coop Master temporarily though, I saved my pickles and wine. For now. I offered up a sweet gemberry to Old Master Cannoli on day 81 and got a sweet star drop in return. I also bought more rabbits and named them Portia and Wesley. And then I continued moving my kegs to the quarry and started a tree farm in the oasis. We're gonna need more wood, but fall is slowly coming to a close and trees don't grow in the winter in Pelican Town. On day 82, I created a fire hazard in my shed by adding open flames to the floor, then I wandered around town, cutting down trees and handing out gifts. I knew I needed a lot of hardwood for multiple projects and I had really been slacking, so I tried to get a handle on it here. Since I was going to need a lot of normal wood as well, I continued planting more trees in the oasis. I finished my day by handing out gifts and hunting down the golden scythe. I didn't really need it, but I didn't have it yet, and that's reason enough to go get it. Day 83 was my second pumpkin harvest and it was glorious. But first I have to give Maru a strawberry. Okay, 500 beautiful pumpkins to turn into pickles, which, by the way, were ready to be refilled today. I also slightly adjusted the preserves jars in the tunnel because I would load in on top of one and it was just kind of weird and inconvenient. When I got back home, Maru gave me the spouse star drop, so it was shaping up to be a great day. I actually spent the rest of the day getting hardwood and processing crops into seeds with a few new seed makers in the shed. I wanted to plant some winter seeds outside in a few days, and I just had too much of some crops, especially flowers. I hate that the colors don't stack. When that was all done, I headed over to the Spirits Eve Festival. I talked to everyone so I could see their really cool costumes, and then I got my golden pumpkin and got the heck out of Spooky Town. Day 84 was the final day of fall. We're finally coming down the home stretch. I plan to move some things around in the winter, so I cleaned up the space to the left of my farmhouse before harvesting the last cranberry crop of the year. Then I was off to check on my coop, and finally, I had a duck feather. I had wanted to avoid getting more than 2 ducks since my naming process would have kind of ruined things, but that was a huge mistake. We still did it though. That's the last thing we need for the community center, and we got it before winter. Technically. I hadn't turned in my red cabbage yet either, so I ran to the shed to find it and panicked. It wasn't in the summer box, because it was in the fall box. I don't know why. Anyway, off to the community center to finish things up. It was beautiful in here, but it's always a little bittersweet to say goodbye to the Junimos. When I was done, I moved my greenhouse and shed right next to my house because I'm lazy, then cleaned up my farm and processed cranberries for the rest of the night. I also put 2 scarecrows next to each other so they could be in love. How cute. Oh, and I changed my profession back to artisan now that I don't need animal products anymore. Day 85 was the first day of winter, and I started it by planting some winter seeds and taking care of my animals. After that, though, it was time to see the community center completion scene. I chose to settle things with words because, come on folks, let's not knock out the middle manager. Then I immediately tackled the entirety of the magic ink quest because, I don't know, it felt like a good thing to do right away. And I kind of just wandered around doing random chores like gathering wood and making tappers and stuff for the rest of the day. It was a nice start to winter. It also didn't hurt that I sold my stored pickles and wine for over 400,000 gold that night. On day 86, I got a ton of mail from the residents, but there was really only one letter that mattered. Willie wanted to show me his secret back room. Ooh. I gathered up some fishing buff food, batteries, hardwood, and iridium bars for no particular reason, then went for a round of pumpkin pickling. After that, I put my hoe in for the iridium upgrade, the last one I needed, by the way, and visited Willie's shop. As always, I am here to serve, so I immediately donated everything needed to fix his boat. After that, it was off to catch my worst enemy, the glacier fish. I forgot to eat my fishing food, so I want you to watch this very carefully, okay? I'll be right back. That's right, I caught the glacier fish on my first try. With a chest. And I didn't even have a fishing buff. I was pretty proud of myself. I was also literally shaking after that, so I didn't do anything strenuous for the rest of the day, in-game and in real life. On day 87, I got the pop-up for the Slime Monster Slayer goal while collecting hardwood, so I went to go pick that up and checked on my progress. I needed a few bats and 2 more Pepper Rex. Not bad. I went to the Skull Cavern to see if I could knock out those requirements and completely whiffed it. Didn't hit either goal today. Oh well. I was planning to head to Ginger Island tomorrow, so I went home to fill my backpack full of things I would need to rush the golden walnuts. I would definitely be going back and forth from home to island, but I wanted to start strong. Day 88 was the day. I stopped by the desert to get some deluxe speed grow, grabbed my iridium hoe from Clint, and took my first boat ride to Ginger Island. You cannot skip this cutscene, so I had plenty of time to enjoy the awkward silence with Willy. Now, I would like to pretend that I know a lot about Stardew Valley, but the Golden Walnut Rush is not something I do often. I knew for a fact that I could hit 100 walnuts before the end of the year. Like, it's technically possible, right? I know this. But it was going to be tough, and it wasn't a guarantee. I made heavy use of my good friend Wickedy's walnut speedrun to help me get where I needed. We'll have to see if I could actually make it happen, though. This was where the real game begins. I got the one outside of Leo's hut, one from the puzzle room, and one from inside Leo's hut. I skipped this cutscene because it's boring. Then I looked for the frog fossil in the grass. No dice. I dropped a chest by the resort ruins and headed north. Day 1 on Ginger Island is always pretty wild, so I'm not really sure how much to show here. Probably lots of little jump cuts, I guess, but suffice it to say, by the end of the day I had gathered enough walnuts to open Island West and repair the farmhouse. I didn't plan on living here though, so I went home when I was done with everything. Day 89 was going to be another day on the island, but I couldn't forget upgrading things at home. I stopped by Robin's and got the next house upgrade started, then headed to Ginger Island. Today's goal was to make it through the volcano dungeon to unlock the forge shortcut and hopefully get more walnuts. I was desperate to get enough of them today to open up the island dig site, but I ended up just one single walnut short. However, I did make it to the forge, collecting a dwarven dagger along the way. I snagged the prismatic shard at this point and combined my burglar ring and iridium band. I tried to hunt for more walnuts, but it was no use. I passed out inside the volcano. On day 90, I needed to do a little bit of Pelican Town work. It was a pickles and wine day, aka money day, so I took care of those chores before heading back to Ginger Island to hunt for more walnuts. While I was watching my footage back, I realized I had missed one on my farm, so I snagged that single walnut, you know, the one I really needed yesterday, then headed over to free Professor Snail. After freeing him, I snagged all the walnuts on this side, then spent the rest of the day fishing and panning for fossils and walnuts. Once again, passed out on the island. Day 91 was another frantic day of walnut hunting, but honestly, I have a lot of chores to do on the mainland too, so I went home to tend my animals and greenhouse, stopped by the desert to trade for more staircases, then wrapped up catching some of the island fish I still needed before making another trip through the volcano. This time I fused my napalm ring with my slime charmer ring. I was pretty happy with my little ring setup. Then I made this little heart emote and passed out in the forge. On day 92, I got the achievement that told me my house upgrade was done. I also decided to do the Singing Stones room for more walnuts today. I had been putting it off for too long. You know what's really convenient about doing this challenge as you're recording though? You can just end your recording and watch back the footage. It may not be very honorable, but I don't care. I hate Extreme Simon Says. Because it was a rainy day and I had the walnuts from the stone game, I made the little music section for the mermaid and also got all the walnuts in Island South that I could find. After that though, it was time to head home and attend the Festival of Ice. I really love warp totems. I'm gonna be honest, this entire run, just like Pam's life, would be going nowhere fast without warp totems. Anyway, I won the tournament, then I did some chores around home before passing out at home for a nice change. Day 93 was a pickles day at home, but more importantly another rainy day on the island, which meant I could get the second of 4 pedestals for the puzzle game and just guess the rest. I also found the frog fossil, so that was awesome. Between those two things, I had enough walnuts to restore the island trader. I spent the rest of the time on the island cleaning up and hunting for more walnuts in the mines. On day 94, I woke up on the island, but I needed to get back to the mainland. I had 3 golden coconuts to crack, which ended up getting me a walnut, 5 iridium ore, and the skull that I needed for Professor Snail. Awesome. I also started the basement upgrade and dropped off a birthday gift for Sebastian while I was in town, then headed back to the island to see my wife and father-in-law visiting the resort. Cute. I excitedly ran to complete the mammal fossil before realizing I still needed another piece. That was sad. I drowned my sorrows with the pirates and saw this screen for the first time. Perfect game. How about that? After that, I went for my customary midnight jog through the volcano and passed out still needing a couple walnuts from the chest thingies. On day 95, I dove back into the volcano and found my final breakable chest walnut. Neat. I also snagged a prismatic shard halfway through and found a pirate hat at the end. I thought about it, but I like my trash hat. I upgraded my hammer with the prismatic shard I found, and I got vampiric, which is not bad, I guess. I also threw 2 emeralds on there for some super speed. After that, it was back home where I saw Mayor Lewis and Marnie discussing their secret relationship, but I'm gonna be honest, I really don't care. Do your thing, folks, I'm not here to judge. On day 96, I found the fossilized ribs at the dig site and collected my golden walnuts and banana sapling from Professor Snail. I bought some recipes from Gus, who was visiting the island, and planted a whole bunch of crops for both the frog and just for harvesting. It was coming down to the wire, and I still couldn't get into the walnut room. I headed to the volcano mine and found another prismatic shard, a dragon tooth club, more dragon's teeth for crafting, and the obelisk, of course. And I also found the bat fossil at some point today. That meant I needed just one more snake vertebrae, and I'd be done with Professor Snail's collection. Day 97 was my day. For some reason, my game kept crashing the first time I tilled this dig spot. It was like this Demetrius thing all over again. But, you know, eventually I got what I wanted, so the game survived. I checked Mr. Key's door to be sure and saw that I was actually at 96 of 100, not 97 like I thought, which was exceptionally bad news. I gathered my ostrich incubator recipe and 3 walnuts from Professor Snail, but I was still a single nut short. I was devastated. Today was supposed to be my day. I went to the volcano mine to mourn/murder and immediately got the journal scrap I needed with a walnut location. So yeah, all done, I guess. I gathered that walnut at, oh my god, are you kidding me? An ostrich egg too? Alright, well, I rushed over to Mr. Key's walnut room. I listened through his stupid speech and checked his request board. 4 prismatic shards or catching the extended legendaries. I gotta check at home, but I don't think I have enough prismatic shards for that. And I kinda need to focus on normal fish before worrying about the extended family, to be honest. I did end up checking at home, and yeah, no dice, so no key quest this time. We'll check later. I did harvest my pickles and wine and get that ostrich egg started, though. On day 98, I checked the traveling cart just out of habit and was disappointed, of course. Honestly, though, the rest of the day was pretty chill. I had made it to the walnut room, and that was all that mattered. I stopped by the resort and took this screenshot since my wife was visiting. I bought myself a fancy island TV, and I just kind of wandered around like an idiot. Day 99, folks, almost done. I planted more winter seeds today, expanded my ancient fruit crop in the greenhouse, and worked on catching the few fish I hadn't wrangled yet. I also, like an absolute moron, took Danger in the Deep from Mr. Key. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. It was the night market day today, so I went home and watched the super awkwardly silent mermaid show for a pearl, just hoping the whole time that Maru wouldn't walk in. Then I caught all the submarine fish, plus an albacore and a squid. Day 100 was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. I decided to finish up my fishing collection today. I needed a perch, a lingcod, the mutant carp, the slime jack, the scorpion carp, the void salmon, and all of the mines fish. That was the reason picking Danger in the Deep was so stupid. Dang it. I was actually pretty bummed by that. But you know what? It was day 100. Time to assess our final stats, right? I stopped by home to say goodnight to Maru, but she just kind of grumbled at me. What the heck? Come on. Then I headed to visit the island to see Mr. Key. I wanted to know how close to perfection I had gotten. With bated breath, I crept into his walnut room and said hello. Then I checked the perfection tracker for the first time this game. 36%?
On day 101, I decided that Mr. Key had wronged me so terribly that I would crush his stupid little challenges. 36%? Come on, dude. I gathered my ginger and stone from the island, gave Leo a bird feather, and headed home. I dropped off a birthday present and a quest item for Resmodius, then grabbed all my stone and staircases from storage. After that, I made a quick trip to Robin's to buy more stone and a workbench. Then, with no honor at all, I cleared the entire Danger in the Deep quest in one day by just placing staircases when I couldn't find stairs quickly. I even had enough time to go to the night market and hand out gifts when I was done. I did forget that Evelyn doesn't like fish though. Whoops. On day 102, I basically just redid the layout on Field 2 all day. Where I used to have quality sprinklers, now I had iridium. I actually didn't have enough winter seeds to cover this, which means some of it will untill itself somehow, but that's alright. I mostly just needed the pattern ready for later. Day 103 was a good luck day, so I took care of things at home, you know, checking on the animals and stuff. It was also a preserves jar day, but at this point I'm just using up cranberries and waiting for better crops in spring. Then I made a quick stop by Ginger Island to pick up some bombs and headed off to the desert. It was a pretty mediocre day though. I killed one more dino, which means I only need one more. But I couldn't find that last one, so that objective is still on the board. I also snagged some Omni Geodes, which I traded for artifact troves, but otherwise there wasn't much to speak of. On day 104, I had lots to do. It was a wine day, which meant I needed to make more kegs and replace everything in the quarry with new crops. Just like with preserves jars, I'm running low on valuable crops to keg, but that'll change soon. After running errands and replacing my kegs, I traveled to Ginger Island, where I got 11 more walnuts from harvesting crops and showing the frog my melon and wheat. I bought the obelisk to return home and Pierre's missing stock list from Mr. Key. With this, I can buy out-of-season crops for 50% more than they would normally cost. Is it worth it? Sometimes, but I intend to get everything in the room at some point. I would have considered the horse flute, but I don't have a horse. Day 105 was another busy day. I took care of the animals, who I noticed were out of food. That meant a trip to Marnie's to buy some hay. Then I dropped off the stock list with Pierre and bought nothing from him. I actually got that stock list basically to idiot-proof recipes for later. What I actually bought today were 300 starfruit to plant on Ginger Island. I spent the rest of my day clearing and planting and got the last walnut from harvesting crops. That means I just have the banana quest, garlic for the Gourmand frog, and Birdie's request once Kent arrives in spring. Not bad. Day 106 was a Monday, meaning there were new quests today. I grabbed a bat extermination from Clint and Skull Cavern invasion from Mr. Key. I had actually just gotten the quest to get to floor 100 a couple of days ago, so this was perfect. I had no intention of playing fair though. This would be another staircase sweep. Mr. Key was playing right into my hands. I also expanded my pineapples on Ginger Island and continued making strawberry seeds at home. Pretty exciting. Day 107 was the day I would conquer the dangerous Skull Cavern. I planned to head over to Robin's to buy an absolute butt-ton of stone, but it was a Tuesday. Well, no matter. Instead, I finished filling up Field 2 with winter seeds. I honestly don't care that they won't grow in time. And I processed some animal products that were piling up. Then I went to the Skull Cavern anyway. It was a good luck day and I wanted to snag some radioactive ore. You don't really need a ton to craft every item, but you will need at least a couple bars and 2 more ore on top of that. That was accomplished easily enough. I also killed the very last Pepper Rex needed for the Protector of the Valley quest. That meant I only needed the fire spirit things from the volcano. Neat. I'm getting a little worried that Maru isn't asking about kids though. We don't have forever, Maru. Day 108 was the day I would conquer the dangerous Skull Cavern. For real though. If Mr. Key thinks that I won't throw a couple 100,000 gold at a problem, he has no idea who I am. Seriously though, 200,000 gold is a pretty good price for a permanent health upgrade and 40 key gems at this point. Obviously this is much more manageable in year 1 before resource prices increase drastically. Stupid inflation. Speaking of which, I need to make sure to load up on a few things before Clint and Robin decide to jack up those prices in about a week. Oh, and Mr. Key did call me dishonorable for using staircases, but he praised me for mining up all that stone. Day 109 was the Feast of the Winter Star. And somehow I didn't record it, so here's a dramatic reenactment. I gave Leah goat cheese. That was about it. Day 110 was a huge bummer. I spent basically all day working on Clint's stupid bat quest. Then I fished for the mines fish, and I got a stonefish and a bunch of ghost fish. I have nothing more to say about day 110. Let's move on. On day 111, I awoke feeling exceptionally cranky. But it was a Saturday, and that meant it was a keg day. Unfortunately, I'm really low on keggable stuff right now. I used crystal fruit, strawberries, and the last of my cranberries, but we need some new crops for these kegs, and soon. I even had to make a trip to get some pineapples from Ginger Island to fill the last few kegs. While I was there, I scooped up a lava eel from the forge. Back in town, I worked on the ice pit. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think this was one of the worst fishing experiences ever. It says I have about a 6 or 7% chance to hook the thing, but I just didn't. Every time the stupid ping noise would go off and I had a fish, I would get all tense and excited just for the briefest moment. But it was always a stupid ghost fish. I could feel the joy draining from my body with each algae. Every Joja Cola brought me closer to despair. I spent so long here that I ran out of stamina. I couldn't remember if current luck or daily luck affected fish catch percentages, so I ate a spicy eel, desperate for an edge. It didn't seem to increase my catch percentage, but I hooked an ice pip. Then it was just a fight for my life to land the thing, and when I did, I was rewarded with the Master Angler achievement. That's 1 goal down. Day 112 was the final day of year 1, and I realized I had really been slacking on this first leg of the run. Today was going to be an important day. Before it started though, I got the star drop from Willy for catching every fish. After that, I harvested all the winter forage and replanted seeds so the spots would stay tilled and watered for tomorrow. Next, I took care of my animals. And when I say took care of, I mean that in the mafia sense. I sold a whole bunch of duplicates whose names I didn't even bother to check, and I bought more rabbits for their feet and pigs for truffles. I should have gotten the pigs right away when I started this video, to be honest, because they're going to be small for a long time. Whoops. I knew the prices of stone, wood, ores, and coal would all increase tomorrow, so just like your average United States senator, I dropped a cool $1 million on commodities right before the new price was locked in. I bought thousands of coal, a few hundred of each ore, and tens of thousands of wood and stone. I also crafted a ton of staircases just because I know I'll use them. I stopped by the desert to buy about 500 rhubarb seeds for tomorrow, and then I moved some items outside into chests around my new workbench. It was honestly a really fulfilling day. Day 113 was the first day of the new year. That meant that Kent stopped by to introduce himself. Hello, Kent. And then after that, it was just a mad dash to get crops in the ground. I bought seeds from Pierre and gathered up my strawberry and rhubarb seeds from earlier. I also had to get some scarecrows down in the big field, but that was no big deal. The center will be for coffee, so I just threw some mixed seeds in there for now. It was a busy day, and I went to sleep feeling excited for the new year. Since day 114 was a rainy day, I decided to double my rhubarb crop. But first, since the JojaMart building had been struck by lightning the night before, I dropped off a fish, some wine, a gem worth more than my house, some grassy, mayo, and 5 fruits from the prehistoric era to help a Junimo get back home. I don't understand, but I'd do anything for those little apples. Then I made a trip to Sandy's to buy 500 more rhubarb. I spent the rest of the day tilling out land and putting down sprinklers, scarecrows, and eventually seeds. I had to steal my scarecrow from the center field away from his wife, which was heartbreaking, but it was for the greater good. That night, we danced on top of the old broken-down supermarket, and something happened. Day 115 was the day I decided it was finally time to get a horse. I picked up the last hardwood that I needed from the secret woods, grabbed some of my iron, and headed to Robin's. What an exciting moment for the farm. After that, I stopped by Ginger Island to see what my new key quest was. I had the options to pick Skull Cavern Invasion or the Hungry Challenge. Mr. Key is such an absolute melon. Did he not see me cheese this like a week ago? I have no honor. Well, before I left, I bought a deconstructor. Then I headed to the desert with 100 staircases in my back pocket and finished the challenge right then and there. Along the way, I picked up 100 or so more iridium and 2 more prismatic shards. Now I have enough for another magic rock candy, so we'll have to do a serious dive soon. Day 116 was soon enough for that serious dive. First though, I dropped off a rabbit's foot for Kent's birthday. Love that guy. But then I gathered up my dungeoneering supplies and headed to the desert. I don't want to go into too much detail, since I talked about this a couple of times in my first 100 days, but it's important to replenish my iridium stocks for both crafting and for extra income. Today, I managed to get down to floor 112. I picked up 3 more prismatic shards to replace one of my magic rock candies, as well as 3 iridium bars and 231 more ores. Smelted into bars, those ores would be worth 69,000 gold, which is nice, but I plan to use them for something else. Day 117 was another stormy day, which is awesome for batteries. In my infinite pettiness, I decided to name my new horse Mr. Key, but like with a K and an I. Key. Got him. Then it was just a matter of harvesting some garlic and parsnips and replacing them with strawberries before I headed off to Ginger Island to get my horse flute and work on gathering ginger for Caroline's request. Since ginger dropped by tiger slimes counts for this quest, I headed into the volcano mine for a while, but got stuck when I needed my watering can to open a door. Shucks. On day 118, I did the same thing. I built a bunch of crystallariums in the morning, but after that I just killed more tiger slimes and fire spirit thingies to work on the ginger quest and the Protector of the Valley goal. Oh, earlier in the day I also planted a garlic seed on the island, but that was kind of it for the day. Day 119 was the day my starfruit on Ginger Island were ready. That meant I needed to go buy more seeds from Sandy, but I'm actually a little low on liquid cash right now, so I only got 200. Then I harvested everything on the island and replaced them with new starfruit or pineapples, and restarted my kegs with a batch of starfruit wine. I also filled the preserves jars in the tunnel with whatever I had on hand, strawberries, pineapples, and crystal fruit this time. I made a healthy chunk of change overnight when I sold off all the wine and jelly that has been a brewin'. Day 120 was a Monday, which meant it was time to check on Mr. Key's quests and the bulletin board. The bulletin board had my worst nightmare: prismatic jellies. I had to take it, but it took me several minutes of staring at the screen to build up the courage to click that button.
On Ginger Island, Mr. Key was not feeling very creative again, offering Skull Cavern Invasion and Hungry Challenge. I'm not sure I'll have time for either, but I took Invasion since it pays better. The rest of my day was spent hunting for the elusive prismatic slime. I didn't find it. On the bright side though, when I snuck into bed at 1:40 a.m., Maru was waiting for me to ask if we should have a baby. Hooray! I decided between day 120 and day 121 to look online for tips about prismatic jellies. Someone on Reddit said to spam floor 5 since slimes, crabs, and bugs are the only spawns and slimes are prioritized. I gave it a shot and got the prismatic jelly. Amazing. I spent the rest of the day hunting for more ginger for Caroline's request. It felt kind of sad since it was a very lucky day, but I really needed to prioritize that jelly this time, and I wasn't ready for another Skull Cavern dive anyway. On day 122, my pigs were all grown. Yummy, yummy truffle time. It was also another day of killing tiger slimes and magma sparkers, sprites. Those floaty, angry things, you know. I'm up to 63 ginger harvested with more than half the month left. I'll definitely make it, but this is kind of annoying. Not like Key's crop level, but up there. Day 123 was the day I remembered I planted garlic on Ginger Island. That meant I could finish the frog quest thingies. It looks like my banana tree is going to produce tomorrow also, so after I finish Birdie's fetch quest, that'll be it for the golden walnuts. Very exciting. Since Pam decided not to work today, I spent all day gathering ginger. I killed the last required angry embers today, so I'm completely finished with Protector of the Valley now. Amazing. On day 124, I decided to go ahead and wrap up Birdie's quest. While I was heading over to the wizard though, I found caviar for sale at the traveling cart. That means I can just go ahead and buy and ship one of those and skip catching sturgeon, which is really, really nice. I got the fairy dust recipe for the Birdie's quest and a few more golden walnuts. I also completed the banana shrine, so I went over to Mr. Key's to trade in all my extra walnuts for key gems. Then I got back to the ginger grind. I'm so close though, I can almost taste it. And it'll be really nice to have some solar panels getting batteries all the time. It's all coming together. Day 125 was the Egg Festival, but I honestly just do not care. I don't need to buy any crafting recipes, and I don't want to waste any time getting like 1,000 gold or whatever. Instead, I just did some random stuff. I learned how to not eat bugs from Jazz and Vincent. Then the bear taught me how to better harvest blackberries and salmon berries, I guess. I also gave Krobus an iridium rabbit's foot since I felt bad for not really visiting. I finished Caroline's ginger shipping quest, and finally I watched Maru's 14-heart cutscene where we talked about the emptiness of the void and the fleeting moments we spend together. She told me to make a wish at the end, and I wished for a healthy birth for our baby. That night I got a meteorite event, which is about the coolest coincidence that has ever happened to me in this game, and if you tell me it's scripted, I'm just going to ignore you. Day 126 was a Sunday, which is my new keg day. That meant I had 150 delicious starfruit wines all ready to go up in the quarry. I crafted some more kegs and replaced the wine up there with all the starfruit I had, and it wasn't even enough. So I switched to rhubarb, since the first patch of that had matured this morning. Rhubarb can't compare to starfruit or even ancient fruit, but I can't plant starfruit on my farm in spring, and the ancient fruit isn't at that level yet. I also traded in a ton of jade for staircases today, so I was back over 50. I didn't end up completing the Skull Cavern invasion this time around, but I don't really mind. On day 127, I had the other half of my rhubarb harvest mature. As I walked back and forth, ripping the vegetable, called a fruit, by the game out of the ground, I thought to myself, I really need to get some Junimos over here. But that would have to wait because it was also Preserves Jar Day. I emptied the tunnel out and replaced everything with rhubarb. Then I headed out to check on my quests for the week. I took the Ectoplasm quest from the wizard, and Mr. Key had the same stupid Skull Cavern invasion, but also the cooking quest. That one wouldn't be hard, but it would be expensive. I took Skull Cavern again. I also harvested a ton of pineapples and made seeds from more ancient fruit at home. They're going to start exploding into Ginger Island soon. 53 seeds today. I cannot wait. On day 128, I gathered up those 53 seeds and headed to Ginger Island with some iridium sprinklers. I laid down a bit of pathing, but apparently I must have scrolled over to my warp totem because I found myself inexplicably back on my farm, which meant I had to hop back on Mr. Key and get another ride over to the island. I bet that was confusing for Willy. After I was done with my sprinkling, I headed to the mines to hunt for ectoplasm. I managed to find it with no real issues since I have the Monster Musk recipe now. But the wizard locked me out right as I was walking up to his door, which, I've worked retail, I get it, but it was still sad. On day 129, I dropped off the gooey ghosty bits with the wizard and he told me to go away because he needed some privacy with the goop. Got it.
Then I did some errands, handed out some gifts, planted a few more ancient fruit, and headed to the Skull Cavern. I didn't plan on making it to 100 today, but I wanted to collect more radioactive ore, and I honestly didn't have enough time in the day to do much else. It was definitely worth the trip though, as I found a giant slime with a galaxy soul in it. I'll need 3 of those to upgrade my hammer, or sword, or dagger. I don't really know which one I want to use. But I got super lucky, and the burglar ring procced here, so I ended up with 2 souls. That meant I could buy one from Mr. Key, or from the Island Trader at the end of the month, and upgrade my weapon of choice. Very, very nice. Day 130 was more of the same. It was raining, so no truffles, but it was a preserves jar day, so I replaced the rhubarb in the Wiggly Tunnel and sold that for about 60,000 gold. Not amazing, but not bad. Then I stopped by Evelyn's to give her a leek for George, gave an amethyst to Emily for Clint, kind of, and ventured over to Ginger Island to continue the ancient fruit expansion. After that, I headed to the desert to buy a magic rock candy and continue in the dangerous Skull Cavern. Nothing really exciting happened here today, but you know what? Not every day needs to be jam-packed with excitement. Sometimes we can just relax, appreciate how far we've come, and give thanks for the moment. You probably think there's a joke coming here, but I'm just in a good mood right now. On day 131, I did more errands. I'm working on friendship, so I gave out gifts like mangoes and flowers and basically whatever I had in my pockets. I also stopped by the Skull Cavern for a short while, but left on a dino floor because I just couldn't be bothered. That night, I started working my way through some of the crafting recipes. I could probably save this to do all at once, but I figured it would be nice to get some stuff knocked out. I also made a couple recipes from the items in my fridge. Day 132 was an incredible day. First of all, my starfruit was ready on Ginger Island. Very exciting. I also decided that I was going to upgrade my galaxy hammer to the infinity gavel. I grabbed my galaxy souls to upgrade and headed to the forge, but I left my shards at home. That was okay though, I needed to come back later anyway. Next was a trip to Sandy's to buy more starfruit, then over to Pierre to buy fertilizer. I really should have gotten this from Sandy earlier, but I forgot. Oh well. I headed back to Ginger Island and plant my fertilized starfruit, then did actually upgrade my hammer. That's a great feeling. It's incredibly fast. After that, I went home to deposit my starfruit for keg day tomorrow, but I had started them early enough last week that they were ready tonight. So I reloaded all my kegs with starfruit, then realized my preserves jars were ready too. Those got rhubarb. All said, I made just under 600,000 gold. Not bad. Day 133 was now or never for the dangerous Skull Cavern, and I decided it was now. After doing some chores at home, I set off for the desert, traded in my jade for staircases, and plunged into the depths. It was actually a very, very good day, despite my so-so luck. I came home with over 200 iridium, a couple prismatic shards, an auto grabber that I don't need, a pressure nozzle for a sprinkler, and I completed the quest. I also grabbed a bunch more gems from giant slimes along the way. I was pretty happy with my dive. Day 134 means we're a third of the way there. Today, I checked the job board and picked Gus's omelet quest. Then I planted more ancient fruit on Ginger Island with some deluxe speed grow, and I saw I could either do fishing or the Grange for Mr. Key. Honestly, I might not do either, but I picked the Grange one. Back home, I made more pineapple seeds, processed tons of my truffles, and collected some hardwood to build the other half of my mini obelisk set. Eventually, this center area is going to be full of warp totems and the golden clock. I'll have to move the obelisk, but it's okay where it is for now. That night, Mario gave birth to our first daughter, Tiny Pete. On day 135, I decided I was done paying Willie 1,000 gold every time I wanted to visit my timeshare. So, I have an island obelisk now. Very fun. I also visited Krobus and reset the mines for my eventual Junimo huts. It wasn't a busy day, but it was a big day. That obelisk is going to be so handy. Day 136 was the flower dance. Woo, so exciting. I started by doing my normal chores. My eels in the fish pond wanted a dwarf scroll 3, which, why? Instead of heading to the forest immediately for the dance, I stopped by Ginger Island to plant more of my ancient fruit seeds. I ended up having to take down some pineapples, but it's going to be worth it. When I got back home, I headed for the festival because I thought I still needed a crafting recipe from Pierre. I didn't. That meant I had to sit here through 35 seconds of terrifying silent pantomiming while we summoned a great evil upon our land. The flower dance without music is honestly just midsummer. On day 137, I had a decent luck day. I realized I needed more coffee, so I started some up in the kegs that I placed yesterday. I also made a quick trip to Ginger Island to get more ancient fruit into the ground. Then, since it was a Thursday, I traded in some prismatic shards for a magic rock candy and bought a full stack of deluxe speed grow from Sandy. I also made a dive into the Skull Cavern and came out with like 50 iridium. Not a lot, but not bad for only having half a day down there.
Day 138 was kind of a weird day. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I spent some time in the Skull Cavern. Terrible luck meant I left early. I replaced some of my coffee in the kegs, I switched over the mines to the dangerous version, then I bought a full stack of explosive ammo. That was like a lot more expensive than I expected. But that's alright. We'll have a wine day coming up tomorrow. Day 139 was a great luck day, which is amazing because I just bankrupted myself buying all that explosive ammo. Well, instead of doing literally any of my chores, I ran straight for the Skull Cavern, and my goodness was it a great day. I brought 2 magic rock candies and all my stairs and plunged into the depths. With all that luck, you probably won't be surprised to hear that I found a treasure room on floor 46 with farm warp totems, another on floor 67 with a dark cowboy hat, a third on floor 91 with 4 life elixirs, okay. The obligatory floor 100 treasure room was my 4th one, and it had 15 pumpkin seeds, kinda lame to be honest. But I had already found 4 prismatic shards and over 200 iridium at this point, so I was pretty happy with my haul. My 5th treasure room was floor 104, and it was an auto petter. Let's go! Floor 116 was my 6th, and it had an auto grabber. Shucks. Number 7 on floor 123 was some cactus seeds. Don't really need those. My 8th and final treasure floor was on 130, and it was a few rain totems. I actually like having a few of those. That was it for treasure floors, but check out my inventory on floor 140 where I left the mines. An auto petter, 6 prismatic shards, 514 iridium ore. Man, what a dive. I was thrilled with this one. Day 140 was the final day of spring. That meant I needed to get one last harvest from everything that I could and prepare for summer. I had picked up a ton of parsnips to replace all the rhubarb in my fields, so I picked and replanted both the large fields, and it took me basically all day. I made a quick pit stop to visit Sandy and to buy about 700 starfruit, which is less than I wanted, but that's okay. I'll have a big payday tonight. Before the day ended, I also replaced all my wine in the quarry with rhubarb since I didn't have enough starfruit right now. I also restocked my preserves jars and made a cool 700,000 gold overnight. Not bad at all. Just as day 140 was a harvesting day, day 141 was a planting day. I visited Pierre and Sandy to get the necessary seeds and fertilizer for my fields, then I planted. All day. It wasn't exciting, but it is important. On day 142, I finally had some time to do something besides planting crops in my field, so I planted some crops on Ginger Island. I hadn't been there in a little bit, and all the starfruit was done, and the pineapples were ready as well. I replaced as many starfruit as I could with ancient fruit, then filled the rest in with my remaining starfruit seeds. It was a perfect fit, which I definitely planned. I checked Mr. Key's quest, and he had Skull Cavern Invasion again, so I took that. Back home, I snagged Fragments from the Past to get the Bone Crusher from Gunther. This is one of the items that actually pairs well with the hopper in my opinion, so I might snag the recipe for that one soon as well. I spent the night killing skeletons in the dangerous mines before heading off to bed. Day 143 was a good luck day, but I had no staircases left after my last dive, and the Skull Cavern was in dangerous mode anyway, so I decided to work on other projects today. I finished Gus's egg quest with lots of void eggs. That's gonna be a weird omelet. I also made some more kegs and got more coffee brewing up in the quarry. It was a preserves jar day, so I swapped out all the rhubarb in there for more. And I could finally process egg artisan goods again, so I got a bunch of those started. I went to the mines to finish up Gunther's quest for bones, and I found a prismatic shard from a random enemy. Neat. I also finished the bone collection, so I'll have to drop those off soon. On day 144, I kinda wobbled around the town. First, I gave Jazz a flower for her birthday. Then I dropped off the bones for Gunther, stopped by Ginger Island to expand the ancient fruit field, processed more animal products, and made more coffee. I realized pretty late in the day that it was a Thursday, so I stopped by the desert to trade for a magic rock candy as well. In the dangerous Skull Cavern, I killed a dangerous squid kid, I guess, and I had a quest for that. So I rushed back home and talked to the wizard. It was a pretty slow day. On day 145, I grabbed another quest from the wizard. Weird. I'm still stopping over at Ginger Island pretty much every day to expand the ancient fruit crop, and today was no different. I did, however, stop at the museum today for the first time in a long time. I dropped off 2 artifacts and also gave some gifts to Alex, Vincent, and Penny. Not Jazz, though. I maxed my friendship with Krobus, then killed the 2 ghosts for Rasmodius, and visited him before heading off to bed. On day 146, I was just continuing to work on my friendships. It was a bad luck day, so there really wasn't much to do. Since I was pretty far behind with Dwarf, I invited them to the Journey of the Prairie King movie and bought them some rock candy. Dwarf loves every movie, so this is a great way to increase friendship with them since you might not visit that part of the map very often. I also decided to build a hopper and bone mill so I could start getting some fertilizer from it. This is one of the very few combinations with the hopper that I actually like. Plus, I have to make both of them anyway. Might as well get some use out of it. Day 147 was a Sunday and the day that I needed to complete the Skull Cavern invasion. I had plenty of time though, so I continued the very, very exciting task of expanding my ancient fruit field on Ginger Island. Are you getting tired of that yet? It was also wine day, though I had run out of starfruit last week, so this batch would only be worth a couple 100,000 instead of well over 500,000. When I was done with those chores, I took my enormous stack of jade to the desert and traded them for staircases. Then I did what I always do when Mr. Key comes calling. I cheated. I ended up making it past floor 100, collecting yet another auto grabber, and then heading home. At home, another batch of jade was done, so I rushed back to the desert, traded them for staircases, then finally returned home again for a nice long nap. On day 148, I realized I had like 2 clams, and I need way more than that for the obelisk, so I headed to the sewer to change my profession. Then I put down some crab pots on the beach and headed to Ginger Island for the usual. I've now reached the point where my only crops on Ginger Island that aren't ancient fruit are starfruit. I'll need to come back soon and get some more sprinklers down though. And speaking of the travel, all this running back and forth is not the most efficient use of my time, but now that I have both the horse flute and the obelisk at home and on Ginger Island, it's really not a huge deal. I also picked up Linus's Clean the Waters quest and ignored Mr. Key's 2 options because they were fishing or the color one. Day 149 was a very lucky day, which meant I should have done a Skull Cavern dive, but it was almost time for dinner in real life, and I kinda just didn't want to. Instead, I did some other chores. I picked up the Lucky Charm from the Secret Note guy by giving him a rabbit's foot. Linus, Willie, and I talked to Leo about maybe staying in Pelican Town sometimes. And I did in fact make more sprinklers and plant even more ancient fruit on Ginger Island. We are reaching maximum capacity very quickly here, which is good. This will be a source of income for the rest of this save file. Overnight, Leo's bird friends remodeled a tree into a small home for him, which, come to think of it, they also fixed my island house instantaneously. Why am I paying Robin for this kind of stuff? Day 150 already. Wow, we are absolutely flying through this. Today was the first of 3 starfruit harvests. Since I got deluxe speed grow down, we'll just barely squeak in a 3rd harvest, which is awesome. This took me so long, and my hands kind of hurt after this, so I decided to invest in some Junimo labor to help me out. I gathered enough fiber to make 4 huts, but that's not going to be enough. I'm still going to be harvesting some stuff by hand. Oh well, maybe I'll fix it later. I'm also beginning to stockpile ancient fruit instead of running it through the seed maker, so this is really exciting. Those starfruit, by the way, turned into wine, they'll be worth just over 3 million gold. I'm going to need more kegs. Or possibly preserves jars. People don't like preserves jars as much, but when you're trying to push profit by day, they're actually really competitive. So if we can't get oak resin fast enough, and honestly I should have focused on it a bit more earlier in the run, preserves jars are actually really, really good too. Just over 2/3 the profit in like half the time. Oh, and I did a nice smile before going to bed since this was an important day. Day 151 was the luau, but I had other plans to take care of first. I gathered all the processed goods from my shed, including some goat cheese that will go quite nicely with Marnie's soup. Then I crafted 100 more preserves jars and 25 tappers. I should have done this a long time ago, but I just keep forgetting. I headed to the desert, tapped some oak trees, and placed down some wiggly jars. I had to mess with the layout a couple of times as I was just doing this freehand with no planning, but it mostly turned out alright. Then it was off to the luau where Harvey made a weird pass at my wife, but at least everyone loved my goat cheese soup. Then it was back to the desert because I forgot to get my magic rock candy for the day. Busy day for a festival. On day 152, I really struggled right away. It was a great luck day, but I had a lot to do. I decided I wouldn't abandon my chores for the Skull Cavern today, no matter how tempting it was, but I would make a trip there later. I had preserves jars to do today in the tunnel, I grabbed a quest to give my father-in-law a diamond, and I finished Linus's quest to clean up the waters. After scraping all my jelly into the shipping container with some cheese and truffle oil for Lewis, I headed to the Skull Cavern, where I actually made some decent progress, despite not getting to the desert until 2 p.m. I found a treasure floor on 48 with more cactus seeds. Really don't need those. Another one on 76 had a big slime, which I'm not sure I've ever seen before. Neat. The chest had an iridium sprinkler, which, okay. Notably though, at 1 a.m. when I was trying to decide whether I should hit one more floor, I found a prismatic shard in an iridium node in the top right and the bottom left of floor 78. And that just proves that gambling always pays off. Day 153 was a wine day, and I'm also going to try to do my ancient fruit on Saturdays. So I use this little pineapple as a reminder in my kitchen, but I instantly forgot about it after this week. I also had some melons outside, so I threw 15 of those in the bin for the polyculture achievement and started on my work. I stopped by Ginger Island and found out that I didn't have enough ancient seeds to replace my starfruit, so I had to make some more seeds back home. Since it was also Alex's birthday today, I gave him a rabbit's foot to max him out. We're doing quite well on friendship now. I only need Evelyn, Vincent, George, Kent, and Dwarf now. Neat. That night, I made over 600,000 gold from all the wine, and that'll only get better since nearly a third of what I shipped that day was actually pineapple wine. I have a feeling we're gonna do okay for money from now on. Day 154 was another very lucky day, but it was also a Sunday, which means my jade can become staircases, which is very nice. I finished up my chores, though I probably should have skipped them, and dove into the Skull Cavern looking for loot. I only took one magic rock candy since I was starting a little later, but that should be fine. I found a blue cowboy hat on floor 17, a red cowboy hat on floor 33, and a second auto petter on floor 46. Let's go! A couple rain totems on floor 48, and a prismatic shard on 85. The obligatory floor 100 treasure chest was quality sprinklers, which are actually not a bad thing for me to get. I can always deconstruct them if I need to. On floor 137, I found an apple sapling, which I threw away. That sapling was my last treasure floor, and I only made it down to 139 before I needed to head back home. But I did walk away with 439 iridium ore, 5 prismatic shards, and a second auto petter, so I was pretty jazzed. Day 155 was a preserves jar day. Technically yesterday was the jar day in the Oasis, but if I do them both today, they'll be on the same timer. I took starfruit to the Oasis and rhubarb to the tunnel. This little backpack full of jelly is going to be worth nearly 300,000 gold every 2 to 3 days. That's pretty exciting. For my quest this week, I picked up some tuna fishing from Demetrius because I thought I needed the farm computer. I did not. And from Mr. Key, I grabbed the prismatic grange, which I will probably continue to ignore, to be honest. I spent the later part of my day cleaning up the quarry for more kegs and getting more hardwood from the secret woods. It felt like one of those groundwork days. I didn't do a lot, but it still felt good. On day 156, I definitely did something. Oh, I know. I built the desert obelisk. That's important. I also snagged the desert warp totem recipe while I was thinking about it, and continued to collect clams from the beach. I need more of those to build the beach obelisk. Also, I went to the movies with Dwarf. It was a rerun, but Dwarf does not care. I got myself, and/or Tiny Pete, a pink Junimo plush while I was there. To round out my day, I collected some fiber from the mines. You can just never have enough of this stuff. Day 157 was the day of Demetrius. I spent my morning and early afternoon fishing up 10 tuna that he needed. I also need tuna for my recipe completion, so it's not completely a waste. Then, when he got home from Ginger Island, I gave him a melon he had asked for last summer, and a pufferfish that he sent me a letter about a couple days ago. We're a healthy family. He said he wishes he could make my life on the farm easier. How cute. Later on, I built the water obelisk, which means I just need the earth one to finish my set. It's starting to get a little crowded in that central area, but once the coffee beans are gone, I'll be able to move stuff around. On day 158, I felt like I couldn't do anything right on the first try. I kept forgetting things back on the farm. Running back and forth and accomplishing so little. It was a jelly day, so I took care of that, but I realized I had oak resin for kegs, so I wanted to make more. Oh, but I forgot to turn in my prismatic shards for candy. Well, no problem. That's all set. Now off to the quarry. Except I didn't make the kegs yet, and I didn't have enough iron or copper bars for them. So it was a mad dash all day. I bought some resources from Clint, made some bars, which I turned into kegs and filled the quarry. It is almost completely full now. That's wild. Soon we'll have to move into some new areas for processing. On day 159, I crafted. Like, all day. It was a craftorama. I knocked out a ton of recipes. I know I still need the deluxe scarecrow, which means I need to go to the casino at some point, but I feel good about my progress. I think there are a couple things left from Mr. Key, but I might have already got all the recipes from the special requests. I'm not quite sure. It was also Starfruit Day, but my Junimo friends, did most of the heavy lifting. I put more seeds in the ground and prepared myself for another beautiful day on the farm. If day 159 was about crafting, then day 160 was about cooking. I put on my best Chef Brandigan hat and learned that I needed a lot more ingredients. Part of buying Pierre's shopping list was for this very reason, though. And if we miss out on any fish, we can get the magic bait. But I definitely need to zero in on cooking because I could only make a handful of recipes today. Maru also told me that she really appreciates all the work I do for our family today, which was super sweet. Other than that, I also had a keg day. Woohoo! That's another 800,000 gold in my pocket, which means we can do the Earth Obelisk soon. Or I could just wait until fall when I redo the fields. It's kind of a coin flip, depending on how I feel. Day 161 was another day of cooking, but it was also the day that Mayor Lewis made a demand of me so boldly that I had no choice but to be impressed. You'll get your truffle oil, Lewis, just you wait. I also accidentally bought 6 fridges when I meant to buy 2. Whoops. Can you imagine if your spouse went to visit your mom and came home with 6 fridges? Our house is getting a little messy, but we'll have plenty of time to fix that later. For now, I worked through some more recipes. I need to get back to fishing though, and it looks like I didn't save much from last fall. I still have a long way to go on the recipes. Day 162 was Dwarf's birthday. I loaded up a couple of Iridium rabbit's feet, one was for Kent, and headed off on my day. I gave Kent his foot, Dwarf their foot, which maxed our hearts, nice. Then I dug up some cave carrots for more recipes, and after processing a butt ton of truffles, I stopped over to Ginger Island to give Leo this feather I've been carrying around for a week or so. He loved it. I also blew up the dig site for more bones and fished up a midnight carp while I was here. On day 163, I decided I didn't want my maple or pine trees in the tree farm anymore. I cut everything down and started getting more acorns planted, but I only had like 4. So I ran through Cindersap Forest collecting more acorns for home. I also checked around the mines and the spa, but apparently all I had put up there were pine trees. I made a quick pit stop to the oasis since I had decent luck. I had hardly any iridium, and I still needed to craft the desert warp totem. While I was there, I shook some trees for more acorns and also picked up 1 oak resin. This let me craft some fertilizer, so I think I'm getting pretty close to completing the crafting portion. Gotta remember to get to the casino soon though. Day 164 was a jelly day, which is always exciting. I switched to mostly ancient fruit here because, I don't know. I also had more oak resin, which meant more kegs for the quarry. Probably not a lot of time left here before I have to think about the backwoods or Ginger Island or something. When I was done with my chores for the day, I grabbed a ginger ale and a lucky lunch from my cooked recipe chest and headed to the casino. It was time to become a degenerate. Don't tell Maru, Tiny Pete. I bought a couple thousand coins and only spent like 3 minutes betting before getting a 20k roll, so I bought the rare crow I needed and then spent the rest of my day in the Skull Cavern. Even with all my luck, it wasn't a very impressive day, but I also started pretty late. That night I got the most annoying crop fairy I have ever seen. She just lazily flew across my entire field, and honestly, that doesn't save me any time at all, like not 1 second. Thanks for nothing. Day 165 started out normal enough. I got the letter with the deluxe scarecrow recipe. I saw my stupid Junimos picking my stupid starfruit, which meant I was going to have to plant some stupid coffee to replace it. But then, while wandering around the town for some reason I can't remember, I saw the bulletin board. I haven't picked up any quests this week, oh no! Well, I grabbed Rock Rejuvenation for Emily. I can get that done today. And a little later I went to check on the key quests. I still need 2 recipes worth 20 and 30 key gems. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. I'm a Sucker key has danger in the deep for me. Well, no problem. I dropped off the gems with Emily, seeing a cutscene about my delicious eggs along the way, then started heading into the mines. I'll be able to use stairs for this on Sunday if I want, but I can at least get a head start. Day 166 was Leo's birthday, so I made sure to give him a duck feather to max out his hearts. That means we just have George and Kent left. Awesome. The rest of the day, not so awesome. I made it down another 30 floors to 45 in the dangerous mines, and I got some radioactive ore. But otherwise, nothing of note really happened. I don't, hate the dangerous mines, but I'd prefer to just skip this. We'll see where we're at on Sunday when I can trade in over 100 jade for staircases, though. Day 167 was set to be the most profitable day ever on this save. The kegs and preserves jars were both done today, which meant I was going to have well, let's just look later. Between harvesting my ancient fruit, filling kegs and preserves jars, and trying to give George 3 gifts in 1 week, shame on me, I didn't have much time for progress in the dangerous mines. I made it down to 55, only 10 floors, and went to bed nauseated. The sweet, sweet view of my income that night helped my upset tummy though. Over 1 million gold yesterday. You love to see it. Day 168 was the final day of summer. The last day of a season is always a mad scramble for me. I want to make sure, if possible, to put seeds in the ground so all my fields stay watered overnight. On top of that normal stress, today was my final starfruit harvest of the season, and I had to finish the mines today. I started my day by harvesting the remaining crops from the field outside my front door, then headed to the mines and knocked out the danger in the deep quest. Neat. That's the last 50 key gems that I technically need. Then I came back home and replaced starfruit with coffee beans. These will die overnight, but that's okay. They'll have served their purpose. As I finished my other chores, I got the notification that the moonlight jellies were in town. I really enjoy this festival. It's a good reminder that humans change the world, but the world goes on regardless. The jellies always come back to Pelican Town, no matter how much or how little you've done since the last season. But just as the jellies are off on a new adventure, it's time for us to open the book on fall. The first day of a new season is nearly as hectic as the final one. Today I had to clear the dead plants from my fields, then I swung by Pearce to buy seeds. He had the absolute nerve to take the first day of the season off. Wow. I still paid for my crops though. And I went to Sandy to buy some beets as well. Then it was planting time, and boy did I plant. I also checked out the job boards and took fishing from Willie and the infamous Keys crop from Mr. Key. I have hundreds of geodes at home that I've been saving for this very moment. Oh, by the way, I bought the last 2 recipes from Mr. Key's shop thing. Then I went home and cooked some food with cranberries since I had some fully grown on Ginger Island. We're coming down the home stretch and I'm feeling pretty good about this. On day 170, I realized I had run out of wood. The tens of thousands of wood I had bought from Robin hadn't even lasted until the end of the year. Yikes. I stopped over by the forge with my prismatic shards, planning to use as many as necessary to get shaving for more wood, but I got it right away. I then tried my pick and got powerful. I mean, I don't know what I expected. I probably should have done the hoe too, but I didn't know it at the time. Then, geodes. I rolled up to Clint's door like a last-minute shopper on Christmas Eve. For like 10 minutes in real life, he cracked geodes and I clicked. I barely got any donations out of it, but I did get some key beans. I planted those and cut down some trees for even more. We'll hit that bean goal, no problem. Day 171 was a great luck day, and while I probably could have worked on some other chores, I took the opportunity to make a Skull Cavern trip. I found treasure floors on 23, 43, 45, 71, 88, 94, 99, 100, of course, 106, 137, 153, and 202. And while 12 treasure floors is a really cool accomplishment, and getting to floor 207 is nothing to sneeze at either, I didn't find much more of interest down here than the 500 some iridium ore or 8 prismatic shards I picked up. Not that that's worth complaining about, there just wasn't really a standout treasure this time. I also made it back home in time to plant 21 key seeds that I'd picked up from the cave before crawling into bed at 150. On day 172, I was starting to sweat. I was feeling a little worried about the museum, to be honest. So, after my normal morning routine, I headed to Clint's, despite the good luck of the day. I cracked enough geodes to get my last 2 minerals, then traded the rest of my Omni geodes for artifact troves. I got an ornamental fan, which is great, but I still have a few things to find. I also gave Kent a rabbit's foot today, which means we'll be at max after one more gift. And I rounded out my night by getting ready for even more kegs. Between days 172 and 173, I did some calcs and realized that I wasn't quite on track to hit my gold requirements by the end of 200 days. That wasn't an enormous deal, because my napkin math didn't include selling through stockpiled iridium or things like that, but it was slightly concerning. Since I was also low on wood, pushing that number up without spending too much was going to be an issue as well. For now, I switched back to starfruit in my preserves jars to increase short-term income and place more kegs in the spa area. I also gave Kent a rabbit's foot today, which means I'm at max hearts with everyone in town. Now I can focus on my other goals like the museum and gold clock. For the first time in a while, I passed out off my farm, replacing wines just to squeak out every little bit of time I could. Day 174 was a Saturday, which means carpal tunnel as I harvest all the ancient fruits. My key fruit project is still progressing as well, and I had some pumpkins fully grown on Ginger Island. So I came back to make a couple more dishes for the cooking completion. There's not a lot of time left in this leg of the run, and I'm starting to get a little nervous. I tried to switch my profession to pirate overnight, but I held down the left click button in just the wrong spot and ended up just picking Lure Master for crab pots. Dang. On day 175, I picked some beets to start my day, did another round of key bean swapping, and made my final crafting item, the jack-o'-lantern. That's one more step toward perfection. I ran through the quarry mines searching for a skeletal hand, but no dice. Then I spent pretty much the rest of the day cutting down trees in Cindersap Forest before realizing way too late that I should probably try to get Archaeologist on my hoe to help get the last few items I need. After I did that, I searched the beach for items, but didn't get anything good. Well, is what it is, I guess. I also forgot to switch my profession today. On day 176, I decided it was time to stop being stingy. I have to spend money to make money. I'd cut down a lot of trees, but I had nowhere near enough wood, so I made a trip to Robin's and dropped hundreds of thousands of gold on more wood. Then I crafted over 100 more preserves jars for the desert and made my jelly run. This was pushing 450,000 before these jars, so we'll be approaching 700,000 gold per jelly day. Not bad. I am going to run out of starfruit at some point though. I also headed back to the quarry to search for the skeletal hand, and I got 2 pairs of baggy pants. Legitimately, from 2 different floating skulls. How are you guys wearing these? But I also got my skeletal hand. That means I'm really, really close on artifacts. Tomorrow I need to drop that off, and I'll open some artifact troves while I'm in the area. Then we can reassess what I still need. Day 177 was a rainy day, which meant I could get the eels I needed for 2 recipes. Before that, though, I got salmon and a couple sardines, which I needed for salmon dinner and dish of the sea. I spent so long trying to get eels. And while I did get them eventually, the fact that my calculator said 17 to 25% or so was such an insult. After that, I headed to the Duggies area of the mines. Duggies can drop the chewing stick that I need, and the rusty cog can be found in the mine's dirt. I actually got the rusty cog nearly right away. I think it came from the ground when I killed a slime with my napalm ring, not sure. And a couple floors later, I landed in the middle of Duggie City. I had prepared some monster musk for this, so they were just everywhere. It didn't take long before I got my chewing stick. Now all I need for the museum is the ancient sword. I switched my fishing profession to pirate, and I need to get some carp for cooking, so if I get treasure, I could find it there. But I can also get it from artifact troves, so we should be good to go. Day 178 was a very good luck day, so I figured I'd probably be best to head to the Skull Cavern and get more Omni Geodes to trade for artifact troves. I didn't bother taking my magic rock candy because I wasn't really concerned with diving. In fact, when I ended up on mummy floors, I tended to stick around a little to get more geodes from the ghosts floating around. I ended up getting 29 more Omni Geodes, which is only about another 5 troves. That's not a ton. And the sword is a constant 3.7% chance to appear, so that's bad. I might need to start doing a lot more fishing. Overnight, I got a stone owl somewhere on my farm, which is cool, but not nearly as rare as it used to be. Day 179 was a jelly day, which is fun, but also takes up a lot of the day now. I also wanted to make more kegs, but realized I'm now at a copper and iron bottleneck. I started more bars today and should be fine for this round of oak resin harvesting, but I need to either buy more ores or spend more time searching for these ones specifically. When I was done with my normal chores, I headed to the mountain lake to do some fishing. I didn't find the ancient sword, which wasn't super surprising, but I did get all the carp I needed to cook my last currently available recipe. Carp surprise. Yum. Day 180 was a keg day, since I just barely managed to get all my wine done last Friday night before passing out in the mud. This will be nice, since tomorrow is going to be ancient fruit harvest. I kinda need to separate those two, since they both take quite a lot of time. We'll have another million or so gold coming in overnight, which is good since there's only 20 days left before we hit the big 200. Later that day, I went fishing with ginger ale and spicy eel to buff my luck. No ancient sword, though. Day 181 was an ancient fruit day on Ginger Island, which always takes up quite a bit of time. I also decided to clear out some of my quest log today, so I gave Gus a lobster and an albacore, and I brought an amaranth over to Marnie. I need to find a largemouth bass for Jody still, but that can wait. After all my chores and gifting were done, I spent the rest of my day fishing from that same old spot I started at, all the way back at the beginning of the run. It was nostalgic, in a way, but nostalgia doesn't pay the bills, and it certainly didn't provide me with an ancient sword. Day 182 was a pumpkin day, and a preserves jar day. I also stopped by Willie's to buy a few treasure bobber thingies since I kept forgetting about that. But I didn't have time to do much more than replace all the starfruit jellies with ancient fruit and harvest and replant all those pumpkins. So many pumpkins. I got 4 giant pumpkins today, which is wild to me since it was the first day I could get any at all and I hardly ever see them. Also, my Junimos didn't even finish their harvesting. Bunch of lazy jerks. On the bright side, I made another 800,000 gold overnight, so we're closing in on the gold clock. Day 183 was a rainy Monday. I didn't have any really specific goals in mind other than the ancient sword, of course, so I just worked on the keys crop quest and accidentally teleported myself to the oasis trying to pick this fruit. Twice. After that, I built the earth tower and considered moving some farm buildings around. I did move the fish pond, but I still want to finish my key bean harvest before moving anything else. I got that largemouth bass for Jody today and slapped the whole thing down on her living room floor. Then grabbed a fishing quest from Willie and headed to Ginger Island for the night. Nothing to report here though. Day 184 was the Stardew Valley Fair, and while I probably should have been working toward the ancient sword or something, I cannot possibly turn down an excuse to clown on Pierre. So I gathered up a bunch of garbage from my storage boxes and headed into town. The key to a good Grange display is the arrangement. That's not true, of course, but it's what I always tell myself when I put a prismatic shard at the center of my display. I didn't even have to slip Lewis a fiver this year, as I cleanly came out ahead of Pierre with 104 points. After that, I checked the shop but didn't want anything, so I had a burger with my wife and headed to Ginger Island to catch more fish. I finished the blue discus part, but that was it. Day 185 was another jellies day. I've switched over to ancient fruit again as I'm just running a little low on starfruit. We'll still break 500,000 gold on jelly days, so this isn't exactly heartbreaking. To continue my theme of doing good stuff for people who don't deserve it, I dropped off some gold pumpkins for Pierre. This is like the worst crop to give him, but I don't have enough of anything else right now, and I don't want to forget about it. After that, I headed to Ginger Island and fished the day away. I caught the remaining lionfish and stingrays. No ancient sword, though. On day 186, I continued to flail uselessly against my fate. I harvested my oak resin, which was just starting to build up since I was out of bars and couldn't possibly go to the mines while I was on this stupid artifact hunt. Then I fished for a while, got a whole bunch of treasure, but no sword, and decided to go straight to the cause of and solution to all of life's problems: gambling. I messed around in the casino for a while until I had enough key coins to buy 42 magnets, and between those and a couple treasure bobbers that I crafted, I got nothing. Neat. Day 187 was a wine day, so I guess if I have to be a failure, at least I'll be a multi-millionaire failure. They say that money doesn't buy happiness, but actually the only people that say that are the ones that aren't barely keeping it together. And now that I own a hobby farm with annual incomes that put me in the 1%, I can safely say that while money might not buy happiness, it does buy a gold clock. And isn't that more important anyway? It was also a jellies day, by the way. I did manage to replace all my jellies with pumpkins to make pickles, but I also passed out in the desert. Oh well. Day 188 was a Saturday, and Saturdays are for the ancient fruit on Ginger Island. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, I guess. Either way, I sold off those jellies and harvested my ancient fruits. Then, because I could not bring myself to spend one more day fishing, I headed for the Skull Cavern. I figured I'd just spend some more time in here getting Omni Geodes for more artifact troves. I actually had a bunch of geodes at home too, so I turned them all in for 9 artifact troves. Fingers crossed for our ancient sword. Day 189 was a completely, totally normal day in every way. I started the day by realizing I was all done with Key's crop. Fantastic. Then I stopped by the desert with over 200 jade. Dang, I've been slacking. But that's a lot of staircases for more Skull Cavern dives, which means more Omni Geodes. On that topic, I decided to head to Clint's and crack those 9 artifact troves. I got a rusty spur, an arrowhead, a dwarf gadget, an ornamental fan, and a pearl. Interesting, that's the wedding dress and the veil, right? Maybe if I ever remarry. And a golden mask. Oh, and the ancient sword. Wait, what? Let's go. Wait, no. Let's see these next 2. Glass shards and chipped amphora. Okay, well, obviously I ran and turned the ancient sword into Gunther, which means I completed the collection and got the final star drop. And man, does it feel good. I didn't really know what to do with myself next. Since my fields would be empty soon, I bought a couple hundred eggplants, which would at least give me 1 crop, and then leave the ground tilled. After planting those, I kind of just messed around with decorating that central area of my farm. I thought that there were going to be 3 spaces in the center for the golden clock, but there aren't. I might have to move it somewhere else. But who cares? We got the sword! Day 190 was a pickles day, which is weird to say since it's usually jellies. I was also feeling it when it came to revenue from these pickles. Might have to switch back to ancient fruit, but I kind of didn't realize in time. I decided for these last few days that I would try to get some of the secrets around town too. So I grabbed a super cucumber and a void mayonnaise and cooked a strange bun. I got the frogman thing, the HMTGF question mark thingy, and you need a duck mayo, not a void mayo for Pinky Lemon. Dang, that'll have to wait. Then I took a grub quest from Clint and a Skull Cavern quest from Mr. Key. I decorated around the farm a bit and went to the caves before bed. I was feeling relaxed as heck. Day 191 was a great luck day, so I figured why not head to the Skull Cavern and knock out that hungry challenge right away. I made it down past 100, gathering up a bunch of treasure rooms along the way, but I didn't really get anything too exciting. Probably the most interesting thing to happen was that I got a red slime egg and a blue cowboy hat on back-to-back treasure floors. At about 5 p.m., I just kind of thought to myself, I don't need to be doing this. I'm going home. And I did. I went home and sold a few things that had just been piling up, and then I decorated, and it was amazing. This top little corner of my farm is looking pretty nice. I have a couple things to move, but I'm pretty happy with it. On day 192, I woke up just over 20,000 gold away from 10 million. So after doing my normal morning chores, I headed to Pearce to sell some pineapples. That brought me over 10 million, so my next stop was to the wizard. It's time to get the most expensive item in the game out of the way. I'm not sure where I want the golden clock, so I just plopped it unceremoniously behind my chicken coop for now. What a perfect spot. Then I grabbed Pinky Lemon from the bar with the duck mayonnaise and stuffed him in a chest because I don't know where to put him. Then it was time for decorating. I decided that I wanted to move my workbench and chests into the shed, and I consolidated some chests as well. I got so into decorating that I didn't even notice how late it was getting and passed out in my shed for possibly the first time ever. Day 193 was a pickles day, and I had a lot of ancient fruit lying around, so I swapped back over to jellies. I also picked up a phone from Robin and did all the little house upgrade thingies while I was there. On my way home, I snagged the catalog from Pierre's. I updated the sheds, walls, and floors, then redid parts of my house. I still need the furniture catalog from Robin when I have a little more money, but I can at least get started. I made the bottom room a little bit of a museum, I guess, for now. The main floor will be a living space eventually, and then upstairs I'll probably do a hobby room or aquarium on the left and a bedroom on the right. Or I might flip them. Who knows? It was kind of fun that today was a great luck day, and I just didn't care at all. I was just vibing. Day 194 was another wine day, and that meant a lot of money was about to come in. I ended up selling my wine to Pierre this time instead of waiting for the shipping bin because I wanted to make a couple of big purchases. I got the furniture catalog and a couple calendars from Robin. Then I started the house project for Pam. She had to wait, until I finished my perfection goals, but now I can afford it. I even put off getting the return scepter for this, so you better appreciate it, Pam. Then I spent the rest of my day decorating again. I redid the walls in the bedroom and furnished it, added windows throughout the house, moved some paintings around, and got some plushies for Tiny Pete. I also turned the upper left room into an aquarium/reading room and included the sewing machine I got from Emily. It's looking nice in here. Day 195 was an ancient fruit day, so I juiced up on coffee and crab cakes and headed to Ginger Island. I actually forgot my greenhouse, I think. Oh well. When I got back, the work wasn't done though. It was also the second and final pumpkin harvest of the season. This was the last crop I hadn't shipped 15 of since I was always processing them. So I sold a whole bunch of gold ones to get that little star. I moved my silo and had Robin start a second one. Crazy how she can build Pam a house and work on a silo for me. Then I decorated some more. I think the house is coming together. There are a couple of empty spaces I need to think about, but for the most part I'm pretty happy with it. It's kind of silly that I never make time to decorate until the very end of the game. Wouldn't I enjoy it more if it were like this the whole time? Anyway, I passed out in the living room tonight since I wasn't watching the clock. Oh, and I skipped Spirits Eve. Day 196 was the final day of fall, and honestly, that didn't mean much because I wasn't waiting on any specific crops. So I just started my day by decorating some more. Then, as I thought more, I realized it was probably a jellies day, and it certainly was. Well, there's another 500,000 gold for us, so that's pretty neat. When I was done with all that business, I went back to cleaning up and decorating. I'm thinking about redoing the 2 southern fields, so I removed all the sprinklers and scarecrows from down there. I put them all in a shed so they can be happy together. But that was it. That's how I spent my last day of fall. It was nice. On day 197, I was in full aesthetic mode. I installed a little kids crafting type table. Cute. And I threw another end table under the calendar in the front. Perfect for keys or whatever. Then I stashed the catalogs in the fridge, because why not? I stopped in town to see that Pam had a new house, but since I'm probably like the second most humble person I know, I didn't even tell them it was from me. Then I got a few cabins installed around the farm, again, just for the aesthetic. I redid the area around my bottom left field, adding a little fence and lights, as well as a lovely little path leading toward the pond down there. I'm honestly pretty proud of that. Day 198 was another relaxing crafting day. I picked up some grass starts from Pierre, just a reminder that I use winter grass to make this possible. Then I put them around the small pond area I worked on yesterday. I also put down some seating and a campfire down there, as well as a couple of braziers for light. I think it looks really neat. Then I moved a few things around and cut down my oak resin farm. I don't really need one anymore, but even if I did, I still have trees that I could use these tappers on in the oasis. I moved the cabin in that area up north and made some fences and pathing for the various entrances. This is all going to be for my sweet, sweet animals. I hope they like it. On day 199, I decided to get back to the secret hunting I had talked about a while ago. I took my fishing rod to the volcano and got the master enchantment. Then I headed to the desert to fish up the pyramid decal. I got bored though, so I went to get Krobus before my food buff wore off. Then I went to the secret woods for the hanging basket, and also got the foliage print from Ginger Island. I was going to go for the squirrel too, but I forgot my watering can. Oh yeah, and it was a jellies day today, and I sold some extra ancient fruit because I wanted to break 2 million gold for something tomorrow. It's finally day 200, huh? It feels like time has just been flying. Well, I've accomplished my goals, so today is just for fun. I went to the desert and cut down all the mahogany trees I planted oh so long ago and replaced them with oak. I also tapped the trees that were missing tappers while I was there. Then I stopped by the wizards to move some stuff around. We need to clear out the area around Grandpa's shrine if he's going to visit soon. I still wasn't sure where I wanted to put the golden clock, but I ended up plopping it right between the greenhouse and my shed. Then I spruced it up a little bit. Gaudy? Maybe so, but a 10 million gold clock demands a certain level of opulence. And I mean, so what if it's tacky? It's fun. After that, I fished up a squirrel statue, which I put in Tiny Pete's room. Then it was time. How far had I come? Well, I mostly knew. But still, I stopped to visit Mr. Key, who said he's always watching. What a creep. And there it was. 99%. All that's missing are the winter year 2 recipes. I want to say that I felt victorious, but honestly I felt a little hollow. I still had my final field to decorate. I still only had one child, though Tiny Pete is great, for a serial killer, don't get me wrong. When I got back home, I said goodnight to Maru, tucked in Tiny Pete, and crawled into bed myself. I awoke on day 201 determined to finish up my trek to perfection, but I don't have a lot left that I need to do. I decided to fill some of my fields with fiber seeds, but I don't have nearly enough mixed seeds to do the whole farm. That's alright though, this will still be a good start. I basically spent my day tilling and planting those fiber seeds since I'd let the ground return to its untilled state over the past few days. I made a quick stop to the mutant bug lair to get more fiber and mixed seeds, as well as Ginger Island for more clay. I also placed down some pathing in the last field that I hadn't tidied up yet. Day 202 was a Saturday, which meant ancient fruit of course, but it was also a jellies day. I wanted to expand the jars a little, so I sold my jellies to Pierre today. It's weird that I can just take 500,000 gold out of his cash register while he's on vacation and he's just like, yeah, that tracks. What kind of security measures do you have in place, Pierre? I bought a ton of wood and coal, but actually ran out of stone for more jars. Bummer. I also realized I was supposed to do kegs yesterday, so I gathered up all those ancient fruits and got another batch of wine started. I increased the number in the spa area by about another 40-some. Looks like I need more iron as well. If you count the jellies I sold to Pierre today, I made about 1.5 million gold in one day, which is okay, I guess. On day 203, Maru asked if I was going to compete in the winter fishing competition tomorrow. I don't really need to, but maybe it'll be fun. I learned the recipe for poppy seed muffins today and immediately cooked one, bringing me ever closer to the final task I needed. It was apparently a girls' day at the beach, plus Leo, which is actually really cool, so I decided to just let Maru have some fun with everyone and headed back home to collect more iron and also some winter roots. I can turn those into winter seeds, letting me expand my planting areas without exclusively needing fiber seeds. Day 204 was a Monday, meaning I could grab new requests from the board and Mr. Key's room. I checked out the job board, but I don't want to hunt Ginger again or catch Perch, so I just left those. Mr. Key's quest, though? I've been ignoring the extended family quest every time it comes up. That could be kinda cool. I could put them in my aquarium room. I snagged that quest, even though it only has 3 days, then headed home to attend the Festival of Ice. I talked to Maru and saw Tiny Pete just running around like her diaper was on fire, then squared up for the competition. I wanted to assert my dominance here, so I decided to try and steal a fish right out from under Pam's nose. I don't know why I bully Pam, I just can't stop. As time ticked down and I had only caught 4 fish, I realized I had made a terrible mistake. Bullying Pam was a cruel thing to do, and I was punished for it by losing the competition to Willy. Wow. That hasn't happened in a while. I guess that's what I get. On day 205, I geared up for a fishing expedition. Desperate to redeem myself from the Festival of Ice, I decided to try to knock out the extended family quest today. I had to swap out some ancient fruit jellies first, but after that I headed to Willie's to buy some trap bobbers, then parked myself on the docks for the Son of Crimson Fish. I nearly broke my fingers, I guess, trying to wrangle him in, but I did end up pulling him on my first try. Next up, the radioactive carp. The hardest thing about this little guy was sifting through all the trash and trying to hook one. I caught him the minute I hooked him. Then it was off to Miss Angler. She proved to be no match though, and I snagged her on my first try as well. Then I spent 7 hours in the snow trying to find Legend 2, and I never did.
All I got out of it was almost 2 hours of Sebastian blowing secondhand smoke in my face. I didn't expect much from day 206, to be honest. I was pretty discouraged after my failed attempts to get the Legend 2 last night, especially since I still needed to get both it and the Glacierfish Jr. today to complete the quest. But just as I have the entire run, I got up and beat my head against my problems in a pathetic attempt to change my life. And just like the rest of the run, I was rewarded for never surrendering. It took me a few hours of trying to hook the dang thing, but when I did, I reeled in the Legend 2 and even got a treasure box with a couple of emeralds. Neat. That's 4 down and 1 to go. Next up is the Glacierfish Jr. though, and his fish behavior is coded the exact same as the standard Glacierfish, which I personally always struggle the most with. Today though, he must have been sleepy because this was the easiest of the extended family. I pulled him in and finished the quest. Then I picked up the biggest aquarium in all the land to house these little freaks. And Tiny Pete went zooming past, trying to ruin my shot. I spent the rest of the day taking care of my animals since I had neglected them for this quest. I had to cut some grass to feed the barn animals, but everything worked out alright. The other big thing that happened today was that Maru asked if we should have another child. Kids take 14 days to be born in Stardew, which means I will have a second child right as we're wrapping things up for the series. Fantastic. That was one bit that was always going to be up to RNG, but now it looks like I really will have a perfect save file. There wasn't much I needed to accomplish on day 207, so I just started my day by caring for animals. I had cut down enough grass for some emergency food last night, but now I had to stop over to Marnie's and buy some hay. After that, I wandered around a bit before remembering I still don't have the Golden Lewis statue on my farm. What a travesty. I snagged him, then talked to Alex, who said out of nowhere that he wishes he could control the weather. As I considered the amount of snow still in my backyard as I was recording this, I got a little depressed. Anyway, to wrap up my day, I did another round of jellies, and it nearly wiped out my ancient fruit reserves. Then I plopped Lewis down in a spot of great honor, right in front of my other gaudy golden garbage. Day 208 was another relaxing day on the farm. After doing my normal morning chores, I spent literally the entire rest of the day decorating the farm. I bought grass starts from Pierre and collected fiber so I could work on the bottom right quadrant of my farm. I put down some hardwood fencing and planned out the spots for the deluxe scarecrows. Then I placed a small space for an eventual beehive area and made sure the flowers would be outside the Junimo hut range. I fenced off the quarry to make it feel distinct from the growing fields, then replicated the little lawn area on the other southern half of the farm. I might pop some seasonal flower pots into those areas at some point, but they were just starting to feel too empty for my liking. Now that we're less than 3 weeks away from completing the game, my farm is almost completely decorated. Kind of a shame, to be honest. Day 209 was an ancient fruit day. I used to keep ancient fruit and wine days separated, but they've kind of blended back together now. Oh well. That meant I had a long day of holding down the left mouse click, which is fine, but I really don't need more money at this point. So even though I have tons of oak resin at home, I'm not going to expand my kegs any further. Instead, I spent what time I had left after the processing decorating outside some more. I put down more gravel, cobblestone, and stepping stone paths. On day 210, I should have gotten a new recipe, but it was lobster bisque, and you can also get that from making friends with Willy, so I got nothing instead. Neat. I replaced all my jellies with pumpkins. Is there really any point in doing this anymore? Nah, not especially. I'm just a slave to my own schedules. I also bought an entire stack of iron from Clint, which is almost certainly overkill, but I don't feel like mining, and I don't have much else to spend my money on. I'll be making bars from that to make more lamps for my farm, and using it for any other decorative needs I might have. I traded 50-some jade for more staircases. I do think it'll be fun to do one last super deep dive into the Skull Cavern before the end. Then I continued decorating the bottom left corner of my farm. I have a couple ideas for things I want to do down there, but I'm almost done. On day 211, I wrapped up the bottom right quadrant. I added a geode crusher and a lamp, and later in the day, after buying some copper from Clint, I added a couple furnaces as well. I will probably never ever use this, but it looks neat. I wanted to get a mill started today, but I accidentally blocked the place I wanted it with a lamp, so I just threw it in a field for now. I spent most of the rest of my day redoing my shed. I decided it was finally time for the fire hazard to end. I pulled up all the torches and shifted things around, crafting another 18 crystallariums in the process. Again, don't need them, but they look better this way. Before bed, I stopped by the night market and bought a painting. I put it in my fridge so it could keep the old aquarium company. Oh, and I got Tiny Pete a tiny hat. I started day 212 by finishing up my shed design. I added a bunch of seed makers in just for balance, and also threw in a slime egg press with a hopper. That's another set and forget type machine that works well with one. I had to get some more fiber to get one more deluxe scarecrow so I could have an entire set in the shed. They're my security team. And then the shed was done. It might not be 100% optimized, but I like it the way it is. Some of the winter seeds were done, so I harvested and replanted, then headed to the night market.
I bought another painting I don't really want and found out that Caroline was doing her holiday shopping. Cute. Lewis is trying to think of plans to make the town better next year. Sure you are, Lewis. I set up the bottom right field with sprinklers, though they look a little wonky since I just freehanded it with iridium, sprinklers, and nozzles, then installed the last of the fencing I needed. And now, I think the farm is just about perfect. Grandpa is going to be so proud when he visits. On day 213, my mill was done, which was great because it meant I could finally move it over to where it belonged and round out my farm decorating in that lower left corner. I think I'll actually wrap things up on the farm today, to be honest. After moving the mill, I took a bunch of pathing and lamps up to the backwoods. I really like this map and I wanted to spruce it up a bit. You might think the gravel, stepping stone, and cobblestone looks a little messy, but to me, it just looks like the kind of path a person would make on their own, and I think it fits that area. I put some lights and grass darts in the area too to make it feel both civilized and wild at the same time, and I think I'm really happy with how it turned out. There should be a couple trees coming back in spring, and that'll help too. After that, I fixed the space behind the shipping bin. The vision I had for that area just didn't turn out, but I like how I redid it. I added a little lamp too in case Maru wants to work at night. Oh, I also did a pickle run tonight, but who cares at this point? Day 214 was 1 week before the Feast of the Winter Star. I found out that my secret friend was Caroline, so I'm sure we can get something fun for her. I traded in some prismatic shards for magic rock candy today, though I really don't need more of them. Placed a bunch of pathing in the bus stop area, but this time I used the stone walkway floor since this is the closest to the pathing inside the town. I don't want this to be as whimsical, so it feels kind of blocky to start with here. I want to go more practical here, but I don't know. I need to think about it. But that was kind of it. The only other interesting thing that happened was that I cut down the banana tree that's been hanging out in a tillable spot on Ginger Island for the past year. I have one in the greenhouse that should be ready soon, so I don't really need that one random tree out there anymore. I decided on day 215 that I should knock out all the quests in my queue. I got one from Gus that morning looking for a coconut, I had one for an iridium bar for the wizard, and I needed a squid and a lingcod for Willy. Well, I had the coconut and iridium bar at home, so those were easy enough. I stopped by Rasmodius first, then headed up to try to catch the lingcod. I couldn't escape these things when I was shooting for the Legend 2, but I couldn't find one after like 5 hours, an entire trap bobber, and like 30 bait. So I stopped at Willy's shop to buy more bobbers, dropped off the coconut with Gus, then caught the squid instead. He was easy enough to find. Then it was back up to the mountain lake. I did eventually catch the lingcod, and I managed to get it back down to Willy before the bar closed. Not bad. Day 216 was a Saturday, and at first that meant nothing to me. I harvested some winter seeds, crafted more of both those and fiber seeds, and continued expanding the tilled and watered area for spring. Then when I went to check on my banana tree, I saw that it was an ancient fruit day. Uh-oh. Well, I scarfed down some coffee and crab cakes and spent the rest of the day working on that. I harvested everything at home and on Ginger Island, and replaced all the wine with new fruit. Then I saw it was also a pickles day. Dang. So I replaced all those with ancient fruit too. That'll definitely be my last wine day, and I think it might be my last preserves jar day too. I don't need the money at this point, and I'm not working toward any specific goals. I think I'd rather save my time for more fun stuff, like more decorating or something. On day 217, I got my second to last recipe, bruschetta. How exciting. I had the tiniest panic attack ever when I couldn't immediately make it though. I didn't have any bread, and in my panic, I didn't immediately realize that I had wheat flour in the fridge. No problem. I made sure to check that I had everything for shrimp cocktail after that though, because it would be such an incredible letdown to miss out on perfection at the very last step. After that, I spent my entire day working on the bus stop. I was not very happy with the original layout, so I moved some floor tiles around, got a little seating area, fenced off the actual bus, put down a little lighting, and added a Feast of the Winter Star tree. You can backlight these with a torch, and I think that looks pretty neat. This area is better now. I'm not sure that it's done, but it's definitely better. Days 218 and 219 were both spent at the bus stop as well. This footage is from day 219 when I was finally happy with everything though. There's an additional seating area, more pathing, some extra grass sprinkled in, and I added a little solar panel that could be used to power the ticket station. I think it's done. Also on day 219, I collected my jellies for the final time and bought a statue of Endless Fortune to place next to Mayor Lewis. I spent most of the day after that in the sewer with Krobus, turning the area into a little bachelor pad for him. Just because you live in the sewer doesn't mean you can't live in a little style. I didn't have quite enough time to finish it, but there are still a few days left, so that's okay. On day 220, I spent more time in the sewer adding fish to Krobus' tank and a rug. There was something missing though, not sure. I picked up another statue of Endless Fortune to flank Lewis. I was going to put the Perfection statue there, but I think it would clash. I decided to add a couple statues to the sewer, and I put some golden braziers down there too. I thought it looked nice, but then I decided maybe I should put them up the entrance with a bench instead. I'm still not entirely sure if it's complete, but I think I'm pretty happy with it. More importantly than all that, Maru gave birth to a baby boy that night. Since it occurred on the Feast of the Winter Star, I knew there was only one name I could give him: Lucifer. Day 221 was the Feast of the Winter Star. I remembered to record this year, which is neat. My morning started with a bomb in the mail from Kent. Great, thanks Kent. Nothing like a little gunpowder to get the blood pumping. My secret friend person was Caroline, so I grabbed a fish taco out of some dusty storage box and headed into town. She obviously loved it, especially since I trimmed off the moldy parts before handing it over. Then it was time to receive my gift. My secret gift giver was Kent, which is weird. Maybe my real gift was the bomb, but he didn't want to give it to me in front of the whole town. Either way, Kent gave me his purple mushroom and I went to bed very confused. Day 222 was a good luck day and I figured it was probably time to get back to the Skull Cavern. I loaded up for a trip, but forgot my slingshot, which is a bummer. I don't remember taking the Skull Cavern invasion, but I must have because the place was in dangerous mode. I staircased my way down to 100, picking up iridium bars and sprinklers from chests along the way. I kinda ran out of steam though. I didn't really need to be here, and it wasn't exciting. What was exciting though, was that on floor 106 I found possibly the best weapon in the game, the Iridium Needle. This thing has the highest crit chance and crit power modifiers in the game. With the right rings and forge upgrades, you can crit on nearly every other attack. It's a very cool weapon. Shame that I got it so late in the run, since it'll just go in the box now. On day 223, I harvested my ancient fruit and collected my wine for the last time on this file. It felt a little bittersweet, if I'm honest. I won't miss the repetitive motions or holding down the right mouse button for actual real-life minutes at a time, but it's kind of a weird feeling to be saying goodbye here. I've harvested thousands of fruits from these farms and sold nearly as many wines over the last 2 in-game years. I've always been kind of an emotional person, and it just kind of hit me during recording today that this project was finally coming to a close, over 6 months from when I started recording. What a trip, but there's still a little left to do. Day 224. Wow. The final day of year 2, and all we have left is one recipe. Well, I started my day by learning that recipe and cooking a shrimp cocktail. That gave me the Gourmet Chef achievement, and it was the only thing remaining. I tried to be excited about the moment, but Pierre was calling me and totally threw off my groove. There wasn't a lot on the docket for today, so I grabbed a couple movie tickets after finishing my chores and invited Maru out for a date. The crane machine was open, so I got a candy cane, though it kept falling, so I almost lost it. After that, we watched a Hallmark special about keeping the spirit of the holidays in your heart. It's not my favorite movie, but it was a good way to spend the last day on this save file. After that, there was nothing left to do but go to sleep and achieve perfection. On day 225, Grandpa came to provide his evaluation. I got all the alerts for the summit at this point too, which was kind of funny. Anyway, Grandpa was impressed, which is good because can you imagine if he wasn't at this point? He wished me well and told me that the fate of Days Farm was in my hands. What a stupid name, by the way. I stopped by his shrine to grab the Statue of Perfection, then headed for the summit. I was starting to feel a little choked up as I climbed up that twisting path, but the background for the summit was gone. So it was kind of awkward when Maru commented on what a beautiful sight it was. Either way, this was everything that I had worked towards for the past 2 in-game years, and I'd put in over 80 hours of gameplay to reach this point. I watched the credits, saw how proud of me Grandpa and Mr. Key were, suck it Mr. Key, and then, with all that done, I closed the game. I didn't even go to bed and save. I almost think it would make me sadder to let the story end. This way, in some strange way, it's like the story is still ready and waiting. I can come back and pick it up at any time. Maybe that's strange, but I think it's just too hard for me to say goodbye. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you had fun, please consider doing all the YouTube stuff. Like the video, leave me a comment about your favorite thing that happened, subscribe to the channel, you know the deal. A special thanks to the members and patrons who help support the channel. Your support is so amazing, and I really appreciate you. I hope you all had a good time, and I can't wait to show you what's next.